A Wednesday edition of the Sports Bash starts now. I am your host, Mike Gill. This is 97.3 ESPN. The 97.3 ESPN free mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City. You can watch the show live on the X platform at Mike Gill Show and on YouTube. 97.3 ESPN. Make sure you get to the 97.3 ESPN YouTube channel. Watch the show, subscribe, like, share, and you can be a part of the show. You can comment live on the text board in the YouTube comment section. We're back on YouTube on 97.3 ESPN, which means you can take us everywhere, watch us everywhere. The Eagles have fired Kevin Patullo. That you know. Well, what's next? That's what we are trying to find out. There's a lot about this job that we need to discuss. And we will do that throughout the show today. Our particulars, Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City, Jeff Mosher, Football at 4, Q Myers. But a lot of the show is going to be you and me hanging out. 609-403-0973. Josh Henning producing today's show. You out there. This is one of those days, okay, you all got what you wanted. Patullo's fired. And listen, I'm right there with you. I think this was with cause. People act like because you're rational, you don't agree with decisions. I just don't think that Kevin Patullo deserved 90% of the blame here or even 50% of the blame. Sports fans have a crutch. The crutch is it's always the coach's fault. Now, there is no right or wrong answer here. It's whatever you believe in your mind. You can watch tape ad nauseum of people dissecting things. They might see something one way. You can watch tape of another person dissecting the same play, and they see something different. Remember that thing a couple of years ago? There was like audio, and it said something, and some people heard it one way, and other people heard it the other way. And there was a picture that some people saw the color blue, and other people saw gold or something. Like the two colors weren't even close to each other. But some people see it one way, and other people see it the other way. How many people out there listening? There's like 1 out of every 5 people can't eat cilantro. Like it tastes like dirt to them. My girlfriend's one of those people. She can't have cilantro, whatever. It tastes like dirt. This is a situation where I'm watching something last night. I'm like, all right, I really want to break this down. Because if this is 100% or 90% or 50% or 40% Kevin Patullo's fault, I want to find out where he's at fault. My reason that he's at fault doesn't really have to do much with scheme. It has more to do with respect. And it's not that they didn't respect him. I feel like he didn't have the authority to really put his fist down and coach this team hard. You know, what was the big thing with Carson Wentz when he had his best year? John DeFilippo, he really coached him hard. Maybe the next guy was a better scheme and better ideas, but he didn't coach Wentz as hard as DeFilippo did. So I see Emmanuel Acho, who is a linebacker by trade. He played in the NFL, and he does a lot of these, hey, we have a play here, and this is the problem. Then we have Hall of Fame quarterback Kurt Warner, who says, what are you talking about? This play is fine. So do I listen to Emmanuel Acho, who's the defensive player, and he's looking at that play and saying, this play is poorly designed? Or do I look at the Hall of Fame quarterback, Kurt Warner, and I say, he's the Hall of Fame quarterback, and when he processed this play, he saw 2 guys open. Which one is it? How do I consume what I just watched? Now, I watched the play, and I tend to side with Warner. I saw two guys open. I saw an opportunity for Jalen Hurts to make a throw. So who do you side with? Do you side with it's the coach's fault or it's the player's fault? The proverbial, the play was there to be made and they didn't make it. I watched the all-22 of yesterday's Sunday's game yesterday morning. What I saw was a lot of guys open. Now, is that Jalen Hurts' fault? Is he not being coached to throw to that guy? That's a whole nother layer of things. For instance, Kurt Warner broke down a couple of plays that the Eagles ran that are being highly criticized by guys like Dan Orlovsky, who I like. But Kurt Warner's watching the same play, and he's saying, this play actually is pretty good. It's a play that everybody runs. This isn't some basic vanilla play. They're running a play that everybody runs with a lot of success. The problem was it wasn't run properly by the wide receivers. If the receivers run the play right, the play is probably successful. Goes back to what I said yesterday. Execution. Now, whose fault is the execution? Is it the offensive coordinator's fault? I'm not really sure how that works. Like, does he teach the receivers how they're supposed to run it, or does he just put the play in and call it? You teach them how to run the play. I'm just going to call the play. I have no idea who is at fault for that. Is that Aaron Moorhead, the wide receiver coach? Now, Nick Sirianni is a wide receiver by trade. I would say that that's a lack of attention to detail by him, which is pretty shocking because if there's one thing that you hear about Sirianni that he's really good at is attention to detail. Because there's a play that Kurt Warner breaks down and he says, all right, let's look at this play. This play is well put together. It's a well-schemed play. It has a lot of principles that everybody runs, and it works very effectively. And here's how it works. And you run the play, and what he says is you stop the tape. And he says this is where these receivers, it's Goddard and it's Dotson, need to break this route off. And if they break the route off inside instead of where they actually broke it off, the play works. But because they didn't run their routes clean, the play didn't work. Is that Patullo, the play caller? Is that the player's fault not executing? Or is it some lackey down the hall? I don't know. What do we make of that?
Listen, I tend to think that there's a little truth in all of this stuff. I don't think it's that Warner's right, Acho's wrong, or that Foles is right, Sherman is wrong, or Orlovsky's right. I think that they are all coming to the table with a different element of information, and there's some truth to all of it. I tend to think that if we're to take all the things you just said, along with everyone else, I think that the play might not have been what somebody liked to have called, like Acho, but as Kurt Warner and Nick Foles have said, it is a play that gets run by most teams in the NFL. Also, you can also say, as Nick Foles and Sherman and Devonta Smith have said, that the execution of the plays is not correct. Now, to the question of who's responsible for the players not running the routes properly, well, I think that there's a lot of people who are probably to blame. I think, as you mentioned, Nick Sirianni, a former wide receiver and wide receiver coach, he is in part to blame. I would say Aaron Moorhead, a former NFL wide receiver with Peyton Manning as his quarterback, maybe that guy's a little bit to blame. But I also think there's an element to what Jason Kelce said. The players have some blame as well. There is a level of professional pride that comes with, hey, this is the... Did you watch Hard Knocks last night?
I did not, and I feel like I let the people down.
Okay, well...
I totally forgot about it.
Well, I'm going to reference something, so don't get mad at me. There's a moment where Jalen Hurts says before the game, when they're kind of like hyping everybody up, he says, you guys, we all have to come out and give our 100% because there's no tomorrow. We're not playing for tomorrow, we're playing for today. So there's a part of you that looks at that game, if you rewatch it like you and I have, who are saying, I don't see a bunch of guys who are playing like there's no tomorrow. So now when you have guys who are already not executing throughout the whole game, and you get to this pivotal play at the end of the game, and it doesn't go the way you would hoped or wanted or think it's going to go, you have to wonder, is there an element to this conversation where from the players to the coaches that everyone is culpable for this issue? And I think that's why there's differing opinions, because you have two defensive players, two former quarterbacks, and another former player who are all saying variations of different elements, but I think they all can be true.
I like how Kurt Warner, though, who has no ties to the Eagles whatsoever, he's almost like, all right, let me check what's going on here, because there's such vitriol
Right.
that is being spewed. He's like, I got to check in on this myself. So Emmanuel Acho tweets, Patullo was never going to survive doing this. And it's a video of him breaking down the play. Warner responds, doing what? Question mark, question mark, question mark. The outside slant was open, capital letters, both times. The 49ers didn't cover it either time. What's the problem here? He says, I really do respect all these opinions, but what really is the problem? It doesn't matter if it's open. It only matters he's called it 2 times in the last drive. So his point is, Acho's saying you called the play twice in a row or twice on the drive.
On the drive,
And
yeah.
his insinuation is the Eagles are so so simple that they thought that the Niners were such buffoons that they wouldn't recognize the same play. And Warner's saying, who gives a crap if you call the same play over? It was open both times you called it. He says, let's not just complain to complain. Is there an option open on each play? Is there an answer for each coverage? Is this so different than other teams in the 2-minute drill? And then he goes on to say, in the 2-minute drill, you only have about 8 plays that you run because you got to keep it so simple. But Warner's essentially saying, these guys are open on both plays that you're calling. You're complaining that he called the same play back-to-back, and it didn't work either time, but it had nothing to do with the play not having options of guys being open. It's just that they didn't execute the play.
Well, let's muddy the water even more. This is what Nick Foles had to say about the same play on the season podcast.
So real quick,
yeah,
Foles did the podcast. He looked at the same play
yes,
that Acho broke down.
Well, he broke down all the plays for the final drive.
Acho broke down 2 of the plays, which he said were the same 2 plays.
Correct.
Warner then said, what are you talking about? I don't care that the same 2 plays. You know what's funny? We talk about this all the time. I used to call the high school football games all the time. And I used to do the games with Steve Parker. And they would run the ball, and then Steve Parker would say, the next play should be called again. In other words, run it again. Run it again until they stop you, right? Run it again. And we were talking about this the other day. You found a play that works. Run it again. Make them stop you. And here's Acho saying you ran the same play back-to-back. Now, the problem was it didn't work the first time.
Correct.
Why would you run it again? You know why? Because Patullo saw what Warner saw. I got a guy open.
And again, that there's a whole nother layer of Patullo might see it, but is he communicating that to the quarterback? Because you had a timeout for the final play of the game, and you had the whole brain trust standing around talking to each other.
Now, I watched the play. Did you see the play?
Which one?
The play
The
that
final play?
Acho's talking about, that Warner's talking about, that
Yes.
Foles is talking about.
Yeah.
Warner is correct. The guy's open. There's 2 guys open both times.
Nobody, listen, I don't think all right, let's back up the train here. Everyone knows that guys were open on that play. In fact, there were guys open on multiple plays.
No. There are people that want Patullo fired because they don't think guys are open. They don't think he can get guys open.
Well, there have been plays this year where guys have not gotten open.
Of course, you're not going to be open on every single play.
The issue with the Patullo thing is, to me, is separate from the specific play we're referring to, because of the fact that you watch a game like Sunday. Okay, let's say the only game you watched was the Eagles-49ers game, right? There are people out there who are screaming, how is Kyle Shanahan getting DeMarcus Robinson and Juwan Jennings and a Partridge in a Pear Tree open, and the Eagles are not getting some of these guys open? To which the answer is, There are specific plays where guys are getting open and they're not being thrown the ball. There are other plays where, yes, guys are not getting open or they're not getting open quickly enough. Hurts is holding the ball and the play goes sideways. So two things can simultaneously be true.
Sure. This particular play, which I want to hear what Nick Foles had to say about this play, this particular play that I watched with my own two eyes, guys are open, and the ball is not delivered to any of them.
I guarantee you every single time I was in a season-defining, stressful moment, I had a play that I wanted called.
I can think of one in particular if you want to give an example.
Let's go to the example. It's like, okay, the Philly special is for sure that. Hey, then let's go the next year against the Chicago Bears in the playoff game on 4th and 1. I went up to Doug. I wanted Q8 because it was too hard to see. I said, I'm just calling Q8. In this moment, as a quarterback, you have plays. And as an offensive coordinator to head coach, you can suggest a play, but when you call a timeout and you're discussing everything on the sidelines, I'm asking my quarterback, what do you like right here? Here's the call sheet. Because that's what the coaches would do with me.
Yeah. I agree. You're watching that last 4th down play unfold, and it doesn't look like Hurts is really interjecting all that much.
At all. He didn't say anything.
Right. It's not him saying, guys, 4th down and 10, the season's on the line. This is what I think this is not I think I want to run. This is what I want to run.
And also, if you rewatch the game tape or you watch the Hard Knocks, you see a moment where it's the Eagles' brain trust all talking with Hurts about what they're going to do. You see a moment where Sirianni is going to step in and then doesn't step into the conversation. And that's a situation where, yes, Sirianni does deserve blame. Because if I'm Nick Sirianni, I'm interrupting.
Got some breaking Phillies news, by the way.
Okay.
Are you excited or are you anxious?
I'm a little nervous because unless it's the news that I want, I'm not going to be happy.
It's kind of Phillies news. Ranger Suarez has signed with the Red Sox.
Oh, okay, fine. He's in the other league. Good.
There you go.
That's how I look at it.
According to John Heyman, and by the way, thanks to Jose watching on YouTube, he posted the breaking news. There
Jose Alvarado?
Jose. I'll give Jose the credit. He posted on – that's where I saw it first, and then I went over to Twitter and I saw John Heyman. Breaking news, Ranger Suarez to the Red Sox. So
I'm fine with that. He's in another league. He had for as much as grateful we are for Ranger Suarez's contributions to this team, the reality is that, one, his agent was Scott Boras. He was going to win a lot of money. Two, he's had some injury issues in the last few years, and there was no promise or guarantee that he was going to continue to deliver the way he had.
All right.
So, okay.
Just throwing that out there. Thought when I say breaking Phillies news, people would have got real excited.
Well, I'm nervous now because I feel like every time I see I get a John Heyman or a Jeff Passan update on my phone.
I got a John Heyman. There is an update audio here. I haven't heard the audio yet, so I don't think he curses in it. Should I just play it or?
I mean, worst case scenario is a dump button.
I doubt he curses. Here we go. This is John Heyman on the MLB Network moments ago.
Because last we heard it was they had a meeting with the Phillies and it went well, and then we kind of didn't hear anything after that.
Right. Yeah, it did go well. There's some moving parts there. They're going to have to make some room. They're going to have to figure it out if they're going to do it.
Is it him or JT? Is that a thing?
I don't want to say that. I've heard that that's probable, that they probably have to go to a lesser catcher. They'd probably have to trade Bohm to make room for a Bo Bichette to be on the team. So there are some moving parts here, but they're not unmovable parts, right? I mean, Alec Bohm at $10.2 million, they can trade him. They could go for a lesser catcher, although I don't think they particularly want to, but they've been kind of in a stare down with JT Realmuto for quite a while right now. They've offered him a 3-year deal. Obviously, it's not exactly what he wants. I think he wants a little more. I don't know, maybe closer to $15 million. I'm not sure exactly where they are, but there are some moving parts here. Bo Bichette is a terrific hitter. He's the only hitter at over 300 on breaking balls, on changeups and splits, and on fastballs last year. This guy is, and he's only 27 years old, which you don't see too many free agents. Obviously, all-time greats like Alex Rodriguez, Juan Soto, they were under 27, but it's rare to have a 27-year-old free agent. There are other teams, the Dodgers possible, the Red Sox maybe, Yankees, maybe his old Toronto team, but it feels like Philly, it seems like there's some momentum there to get it done and work it out.
All right, there you go. Feels like there's momentum there to work it out and get it done.
Listen, I think the key to what he said there is that when she asked about, is it JT or Bo, he explained, look, I don't feel like it's that way. I think that's the biggest part of this conversation. That is, it's not the Phillies get Bo Bichette, they can't bring back JT Realmuto. The issue is, as I was telling a friend of mine yesterday, it feels like JT Realmuto is just being unreasonable.
I think he overplayed his hand and it put the Phillies in position to have to go to Plan B, and now they kind of like Plan B.
I don't think the Phillies are. If JT came back and says, look, can I get a 1-year, $10 million deal? I think the Phillies would be like, no, get out of here.
No, I think if the Phillies could say, hey, we're signing Bo Bichette, we'd love you to come back, but you got to now, we offered you, he said 3 years, which I don't want to do 3 years.
Right.
He wants more money. And I think if you're the Phillies, you say, we'll give you 1 year.
Exactly.
You want to join this club. You now have Bo Bichette a part of it. You want to be a part of a team with Bo Bichette on it? Or do you want to go play in, I don't know,
Colorado. It's the idea that you got to explain to JT, look, if you sign a 1-year deal, it gives us time to find who our next catcher is, and you get to try to win a World Series one more time. It's a win-win for everybody.
609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. We got a lot of text messages coming in. What else we got here?
Well, what I was going to say about before we got interrupted by Ranger Suarez getting a 5-year, $130 million deal by the Boston Red Sox is if you go back and rewatch the game like you and I have, Mike, or if you're someone watching the Hard Knocks last night, you see a moment when they're talking with Hurts on the sideline, and it looks like Sirianni is going to interject, and then he decides not to. He just kind of is like listening like passively, right? Kind of like just absorbing what's going on. Mm-hmm. If I'm the head coach, I'm interrupting. I'm saying, everyone shut up. Jalen, what are you seeing? What do you like in this situation? Like Foles was saying, at some point, you got to ask the quarterback. Don't tell the quarterback what to do. Ask the quarterback what he is seeing, because part of this problem has been described by a lot of people when you don't have the overhead view, right? When you're not looking on the field from the quarterback's perspective, you have limited information. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, Jalen, this is the play that we want to run. But what do you think?
Yeah, I definitely, but what I think that Foles is maybe insinuating is, as well, I spoke up. I told him what I wanted to run. Doug didn't say, what do you want to run? He said, I just said it.
Right.
So, not that.
Well, that's why
my
Foles,
point is,
yeah.
Peterson didn't call the Philly play. He was looking at the play sheet and was like, well, what are we thinking here? And he's like, you want Philly? And Peterson's like, yeah, sure. So do you look at Hurts and say, hey, man, this is your team. You're the guy getting paid $250 million. Tell the guy what you want. Right. Now, you could blame Sirianni as well for saying, guys, what are we doing here?
Right, and that's why Foles said this is a collaboration issue. He was blaming both sides. He was saying the quarterback's got to speak up.
Who would you rather speak up more, the head coach or the quarterback?
To me, the head coach or the quarterback. It's a 50-50. I
would prefer my quarterback to tell me what play he wants. Like, I can tell you what play I think, but if the quarterback says, you know what, I don't really think that's the right one, let's do this, I prefer to hear it from him.
I still think part of the problem is, and again, maybe I'm leaning too heavily into certain people versus other people. I keep going back to what people have said, that a guy like Jalen Hurts has been told most of his life what to do. He has not been taught how to process independent of being told what to do.
Jeff in Ocean City's watching on YouTube. Everything's Patullo's fault. New OC next year, and the offense will be ranked top 5. You might not be wrong about that.
I hope you're right.
But I would ask Jeff, are there no changes? Because right now everybody's signed except for Goddard. And Goddard's the only guy people thought had a good year.
11 touchdowns. Pretty good deal.
Watch the show. Comments are open. We're going to be doing some text board and YouTube comment segments. So if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you're sending some chats and comments because we want to play them throughout the show and show them throughout the show. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Dave in Smithville sent in a text. Says, yo, G, watched Hard Knocks. Painful knowing what was going to happen. Need a long-term OC. Maybe Mike McDaniel? Dave from Smithville. Yeah, I got to imagine watching. I haven't watched the Hard Knocks yet, but I imagine you put that out there and you're like, I know what's happening here.
It was painful to watch. Like, there were moments I was like, do I even want to watch this anymore? Like, because they tried to make the whole game, like, extra dramatic because it's the final episode of Hard Knocks.
So is Hard Knocks done now?
Yes. So you and I can get rid of our
See,
subscription.
I want to see more. Now I want to see more.
Right, now you want to see the off season.
All right, 226, Mike McGarry for the President of Atlantic City joins us on the other side. Did the Eagles make the right move? Candidates, he's a Giant fan. Do you go Brian Daboll? Does he like that? If Daboll came here as a former Giant head coach, would you say, oh, man, that's going to make the Eagles really good? We'll get his thoughts on that and more. Sixers basketball tonight. They take on the Cavs on 97.3 ESPN. 2:32 Sports Bash Live 97.3 ESPN. A little bit of breaking news in the Phillies world. Ranger Suarez has signed with Boston. He is now a Red Sox. So then the Phillies weren't going to bring him back. But kind of sad to see Ranger go. Big time, big moment pitcher. Up and down during the regular season. Great start to seasons. Then he would kind of fade. The back stuff. We got that and more. Sports Bash Live. Obviously, Kevin Patullo fired yesterday. We're all over that. Mike McGarry for the Press of Atlantic City, pressofac.com, joins me right now here on a Sports Bash Wednesday. Taking a look at what's next for the Birds. What's going on, Michael?
Hey, how are you, Mike?
Well, never a dull moment. Patullo fired yesterday, and it's already on to the next thing here. But did the Eagles make a knee-jerk reaction? They make the right move here. Was it, listen, untenable spot. You just got to move on.
Yeah, you had to move on. There had to be somebody had to pay the price for this season, and you can't get rid of all the players. You can't get rid of the quarterback. You can't get rid of both wide receivers. You're not going to get rid of Saquon Barkley. You're not going to, revamp the offensive line. Sirianni's going to say there had to be somebody had to be thrown on the altar after the way the Eagles offense played this season and the way they played against the 49ers. And Kevin Patullo happened to be that sacrificial guy. There was no way he could have come back. It would have just been a complete circus. You had to go in a different direction. So, again, fully expected that change and not surprised by it at all.
So does that suggest, though, that he was the biggest problem? Or, hey, you can't get rid of everybody. You had to get rid of someone, and he's the guy. Or do you look at other things here as to why this offense struggled so much? Did we lose you, Mike? I think we lost him. All right, Mike McGarry for the Press of Atlantic City. We'll bring him back here in just a second because, I think most people are looking at this thing in this situation by saying they could bring the same guy back and they couldn't keep. Because basically, if you didn't get rid of Patullo, I don't know who you get rid of. A.J. Brown is signed. Milot is signed. Dickerson is signed. Juergens is signed. Steen is signed. Lane Johnson, we don't know what his future is. Barkley is signed. Devontae is signed. Hurts is signed. 10 guys are signed. The only guy is not is Goddard. So you can't just say, hey, we're just going to bring everybody back and the coordinator and say, hey, we're going to try again. But one question that I'm looking at is the Phillies, everybody say you can't run it back. Can the Eagles run back the same offense? All right, let's bring Mike back into the conversation. And my question, Mike, was, it's essentially everybody signed. I just went through the whole offense is signed to come back except for Goddard. So but do you blame Patullo in the pie chart? Is he your number one guy, or just that he's the only guy that was basically expendable?
Yeah, I think it's a little of both. I think both things can be true. Obviously, this offense has performed at a higher level with different coordinators, basically, Kellen Moore last year. So I think he's part of the problem. But, Mike, it goes back to the oldest cliche in all of sports. You can't fire everybody. You can fire the coach. A change had to be made, so it's the coach. Obviously, there were issues there. There were issues. The quarterback took a step backwards. Maybe A.J. Brown has lost a step. Maybe Barkley, after rushing for 2,000 yards last year, did not come back. Maybe that took a toll on him. Maybe he wasn't the same runner. All of that can be true. But the bottom line is somebody for the Eagles had to pay the price. You just went through it. Everybody signed to come back. You can't fire everybody. You have to make a change. And boom, it's the coach. And it's fair. Is he the only problem? No. But this is the business we choose, to use the words of Hyman Ross.
Yes, exactly. Well, you look at Nick Sirianni. How culpable is he in this whole situation?
Well, I think he is culpable because he's the CEO, right? And he put out the statement yesterday that they were moving on from Patullo. I assume he had a lot of input in hiring Patullo. It's basically his base offense that they kind of run. So, yeah, I think, he is he's next up on the hot seat, right? I mean, the question is, how many offensive coordinators or how many bad offensive seasons does Nick Sirianni get to have? I would think maybe one more would be about it when it comes to him.
Yeah, I look at Sirianni now. You're really on the hot seat here because we can't keep changing coordinators because you don't call the plays. And listen, I don't have a problem that he doesn't call the plays, but you also are calling a lot of instability here. So I'm going to ask about Jalen Hurts. How much culpability does he have in why this season went the way it went? Lost Mike again. Where is he at? Is he like in some random spot? Oh, Verizon is having problems apparently here, and that is what is happening with Mike's phone. We'll try to get him back here because there's a lot here, and I think he's vanished off the face of the earth. So we got Verizon problems. If you have a Verizon phone, it looks like you're having some issues with your phone. 609-403-0973. Real quick, we do have people commenting on the YouTube channel that I can throw some stuff up here real quick. Let's see. Let's go to this one here. This one is, I don't know how to pronounce your name, Sidnunsworth or something. Not firing Patullo early in the season just lets us blame Patullo now instead of Sirianni. What would we be saying if they fired Patullo earlier and got the same result? You know, that's an interesting one. Like, everybody's like, hey, why did they fire him earlier? And I think because they did try this with Desai a couple of years ago, and that didn't work either. All right, we got Mike back again. Let's try one more time. Jalen Hurts, how much culpability do you put on him for the failures of this offense?
Yeah, if we were going to do a pie chart, Mike, I think he has to take a big blame for this because I don't know. Now, they obviously, I saw some statistics this morning on one of the ESPN shows that Hurts ran dramatically less this season than he has in the past, and they ran a lot less RPOs this season than they did in the past. Is that because of Kevin Patullo and Nick Sirianni? Or did Jalen Hurts go to him and say, I don't want to run as much as I've been in the past because I want to save my body, I want to prolong my career? So obviously, Hurts is a guy, touches the ball on every play. Again, we go back to quarterback gets too much credit when things go right, too much blame when things go wrong. But I don't think there's anybody who takes a look at Hurts and says he didn't take a step backwards this season. Does that mean we're ready to move on from a guy who's a Super Bowl MVP? Absolutely not. But he did not have the season in 2025 that he's had in the past couple of years. So obviously he deserves some blame also.
I know this is like, one of those things where it puts people it backs you into a corner. But if I were to say you could pick one guy to stay and one guy to go, Sirianni or Hurts, which guy stays, which guy goes?
Well, I take the quarterback. I take the player every day of the week and twice on Sunday. Head coaches are hard to find. Quarterbacks are even harder to find. Take a look around the league. So you've got a Super Bowl winning quarterback. Unfortunately, Sirianni loses that argument, like I said, every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
Well, and I guess I asked that because, Mike, there's a faction of people out there that think that Hurts is the problem.
Yeah, well, Mike, I think Hurts – has had flashes of brilliance. I think he's had flashes of, poor play. And I think this season he did not perform up to expectations. However, all people have to do, again, is take a look up the Jersey Turnpike to the New York Jets. Take a look around the league at what people.
All right, so we've tried a couple times with Mike. We'll try to get back with him on Friday's show because we're running a little short on time. But obviously there's some Verizon outages. People texting into the text board as well, letting us know. I didn't realize there was a Verizon outage going on, but that's apparently the problem. It's for once not our phone.
Is Kevin Patullo running Verizon?
Fire Patullo. Verizon has outages. All right, quickly, let's go to the YouTube chat. What are people saying in the comments? Let's go to Angie, who's watching on YouTube. Angie113 thought that Warner's comments were instructive. He still believes in a new OC to help Jalen be a better processor. Yeah, I thought, Angie, that one of the problems, it just felt that Patullo didn't have the confidence in himself to either coach Jalen Hurts or be the authoritative voice in that locker room or on the sideline to say, this is what we're running, XYZ, bang, we're getting it done. So when I watched the Warner, I did watch, it was like a 28-minute video last night, by the way, right?
Yeah,
Is that the one that you watched?
on
Yeah.
QB Confidential, yeah.
Yeah. I take away that there's plays to be made that, and this happens all the time. I feel like we had this discussion, my gosh, going back to Doug Peterson being here. When Carson Wentz had a bad year, and we're like, and it's like there were plays to be made. He didn't make them. There's guys open. He didn't throw the ball. And, man, I remember battling with Broads about this when Broads was doing the show with us. And, he's blaming Peterson. And I'm like, I'm watching the same game, and I see guys open, and he's just not throwing them the ball. It takes a lot for me to say the coach is that bad, that he's the problem. Because, and I was watching last night. This is a perfect example. I don't even know what I was watching. It was this morning, actually. It's like Underdog has like a video show. Jay Gruden's on there. What show is that with Jay Gruden?
I've never heard of this.
I don't even know who the other guys were. Skip Bayless was on the set, although he didn't talk, thankfully. But there was a guy there was 5 guys on the set. Jay Gruden was one of them.
Okay.
He's giving you the coach's perspective.
Right.
He's blaming the coach.
Interesting.
Right. He's blaming the coach. I don't even know who the guy he was talking to. But he said, nah, dude. Got drop passes, got guys open, players play, coaches coach. Right play call, not executed. You got guys on both sides of the coin here. Nobody's got a consensus.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think there's truth to all of this. And I hate being that, I hate trying to be Switzerland over here. But, like, at some point, it's like I can see what everyone is saying, and it makes sense to me. I think that, yes, the players are not executing properly. But, yes, maybe the play calling is not what it should be.
Hey, listen, do they have the most this is how I would look at this. Do they have the most creative offense that you're, like, excited and wowed by? No. But they won a Super Bowl with this offense. To suggest they can't win with it is asinine.
Right. So, and that's why Richard Sherman said this on the Nick Foles podcast about the problem with the Eagles offense when it comes to the receivers.
It's simple, it's easy to cover, and that's what it's so dependent on one-on-one talent. It's depending on one-on-one wins.
Hey, they don't scheme guys open, right?
No, guys get open. You don't scheme them open. Guys just get open. Hey, AJ, it's going to you this play. It's a go route. Win. Devontae, you're in the slot. One-on-one. Slot fade. Win. Hey, AJ, we got a slant. It's 3rd and 4. Win. If you don't win, we don't have anything. And so it almost doesn't feel like it's progression-based.
Okay, so that's interesting. He's right. And this is what we were talking about earlier, which was Warner basically mapped out a play and said, look, this is a play. Everybody runs it.
Correct.
You would watch it and say it's not all that creative, but I have no problem with this play, he says. And he said everybody runs it. And his point was this. You're running 2 inside seams with Dotson and Goddard.
Right.
Fine play. Outside guys are running curls. The problem was, he said, Dotson and Goddard don't run the pattern right.
Right, because if they run the pattern properly, if those don't know, what Warner was trying to describe, and Foles described on his podcast too, which is the point of the slot guys is to clear out space for the guys on the outside.
For what Sherman just said.
Correct.
Because they are not scheming people open, they're winning one-on-one.
Right.
He's basically saying if the slot guy runs the right route, now I have A.J. Brown one-on-one, and I like that matchup.
Correct.
If the slot guy runs the right route, now I have Devontae Smith one-on-one, and I like that matchup. The problem was both Goddard and Dotson did not run the right route, and then it took away Dotson, Goddard, Smith, and Brown. So now all 4 guys. But how do you have 2 guys in the slot both run the wrong – not even that they run the wrong route. They ran a lazy route.
And that's part of the criticism that Foles had, because one of Foles' questions is how the coaches are coaching the players up for these plays.
So this play is a microcosm of simplicity and just saying, players, you make us look good and you get us there. The players got you a NFC East championship. The players got you into this game, but there's got to be plays. The coaches have to dial up some plays with a little more juice, and this play just didn't have juice.
Yep. All right. Well, the conversation will go throughout the day. and you guys can be a part of it.
It's a conversation that will never end.
403-0973. Hey, listen, I'm a firm believer. You're either somebody who likes blaming coaches or you like to blame the players. But there's a lot of people out there like, oh, I can't blame my favorite player. Not his fault.
Right.
It can always be the coach's fault. And I always go back to fans think they can coach. They didn't know they can't play. So they felt if they were coaching, they would call a better play. It's the society that we live in pretty much. It's easy to blame the coach. But is it always their fault?
No.
609-403-0973. Poll questions up at Mike Gill Show. Vote, 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 vote. We'll reveal the poll question updates. Which offensive coordinator candidate you want in Philly? Mike McDaniel, Todd Monken, Brian Daboll, or somebody else? Vote right now. Couple hours left to do it. We'll update the poll next on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN and on YouTube at 973 ESPN. All right, 253 Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Poll question at Mike Gill Show. Vote, 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 vote. All right, poll question is up. Did you vote yet today, Josh?
I voted in all these polls, Mike.
I just didn't know if you did it yet.
I lose track of which poll we're talking about because we got to the point where there's so many polls now.
Which offensive coordinator candidate would you want in Philly? Mike McDaniel, Todd Monken, Brian Daboll, or other? Leave in the comments. Do you have a pick of one of those three, or did you leave somebody in the comments?
I picked one of the three.
You like one of these three?
I do. There's a specific one I like.
All right, right now, who's the leader in the clubhouse?
Well, according to my app, because I have T-Mobile, not Verizon, the leader in the clubhouse with 32% is Brian Daboll.
Daboll 32, McDaniel 31, Todd
there.
Monken 27, 10% say other. Somebody said Frank Reich. Somebody else said John Gruden.
I see a Kurt Warner in here, too.
Glenn says Kurt Warner. You know, you got to keep in mind, everybody loves to throw everybody loves to throw like the former player coach. Those guys don't want to do this. They don't want to grind and be a coach, a position coach, let alone like a quarterback coach or an offensive coordinator. Like, these guys don't want to grind it in an office, sleeping underneath their desk.
These guys grinded for so many years to be players. Now they're enjoying their life after playing.
Vote at Mike Gill Show. We'll update the poll throughout the day. Mike McDaniel, 31%. Todd Monken, 27%. Brian Daboll, 32%. Jeff Mosher, he listed 10 candidates or more over at phillyvoice.com. We'll talk to him in our Inside the Birds Football at 4 segment in about an hour from now. Coming up next, it's an early edition of the Nuggets. Knicks Nuggets is coming up on the other side on 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. And don't forget, you can watch the show live on the 97.3 ESPN YouTube channel.
remove Kevin Patullo as the offensive coordinator, has not been fired, could in fact end up staying with Nick Sirianni as a lieutenant, as he has been every year before this year. A sounding board, someone for advice, someone for game management. That has really become Kevin Patullo, especially with the Philadelphia Eagles. They decided to make him a coordinator this year. Just simply did not work out, was not good enough. Offense was non-functional. It was a source of frustration the entire year. Kevin Patullo out as OC, and I would expect the Eagles to swing big. I would also expect them to maybe not go with something that Sirianni has done before, a little bit of a clean break there.
All right, that's the big news at the end of that report from Ann Rappaport from the NFL Network. He expects the Eagles to swing big, but kind of break free from the Sirianni tree, if you will. How plausible is that? By the way, Josh, I got a message here that says now Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T, U.S. Cellular, and Xfinity are all facing outages. Are you having problems with your phone?
I'm fine. I think the problem then is AT&T. So like AT&T is attacking everybody else. This is corporate espionage, obviously.
I think it's just spotty based on where you're at because, like, I don't know. I have Verizon. My phone's working.
Probably. It's probably where are you in relation to a cell tower?
Yeah. My phone's working. And I have Verizon, so I don't know.
And my phone's working. I have T-Mobile. So what do we know?
Now, my girlfriend also has Verizon, and she's texting me from her work phone because she said her phone's not working. And we have the same plan. I mean, we're on the same bill.
I guess you're closer to the tower than she
I have no
is.
idea. All right. But other people's phones are working because we have a lot of text messages. 609-403-0973. That's the text board. If you're watching on the YouTube channel, leave a comment, be a part of the show on YouTube, and we will read off your comments and messages and post them on the YouTube channel screen. Don't forget, you can watch the show on the 97.3 ESPN YouTube channel and be a part of the show that way. A lot of text messages here, so we will try to read off as many as we can here. Shaner and Cape May, Mike McDaniel with Sirianni. That could be a riot and potential disaster, but I feel without the restrictions he has trying to protect Tua from head injuries, maybe he can be creative, or does Hurts mitigate anyone's creativity? Hashtag Capri's. That's from Shaner and Cape May. I like Mike McDaniel, the thing like McMullen brought up yesterday, your thoughts on that, which is, you know, you're bringing in a guy that runs the Shanahan offense with Jalen Hurts.
Well, it's also mentioned running the Shanahan offense with Jeff Stoutland as your offensive line coach.
That's another thing. That was, you know, keep this in mind. The Eagles interviewed Kingsbury a couple years ago.
Correct.
One of Kingsbury's demands was that he wanted to run the run game. And, by the way, Nuggets at 3:30 today. That was my bad. I thought it was at 3. It was at 3:30. Nuggets texted me in a panic. He wasn't ready. The Nuggets weren't cooked yet. He's still frying those things.
Yeah, he still needs some time to put them in the oven.
He's putting those things in the – he thought instead of putting them in the oven and letting them bake a little longer, he had to put them in the fryer.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, not as good. Kingsbury wanted to run the run game, basically getting rid of Stoutland.
Correct.
And the Eagles said no. So, does that mean Kingsbury's out this time? Or I don't think the Eagles are ready to move on from Stoutland.
I don't think we're going to move on from Stoutland. I am, for as critical as I was of Stoutland this past year, I don't think I'm going to hold 1 year against him. The man is a Hall of Fame caliber coaching resume. 1 year doesn't make the guy a bad coach all of a sudden.
I agree. I think Landon Dickerson said after the season, he kind of acknowledged that he doesn't know if he's ever going to be the same level of player anymore.
Which I think might lean into what they got to do this offseason, right? They need to reestablish the depth for that offensive line, because if Dickerson and Juergens are going to continue to have injury problems and Tyler Steen's going to have trouble actually like blocking people beyond like 2 feet, then you need to invest about more into that line. Oh, and don't forget Lane Johnson might retire in a couple of years.
He might retire this year.
That's true, too.
Not a couple of years. Might retire this year.
To the point about Jalen Hurts, though, I wanted to play you. So this is from Nick Foles' podcast, the season podcast. He doesn't like this theory that Jalen Hurts is the one holding the offense back. And I want to get your reaction to this, Mike Gill.
I think there's sometimes where they're like, hey, we don't think he can do this. But then I would argue, you're a coach. Like, Jalen has shown the success he's had from high school to college, at both colleges he was at, Alabama and Oklahoma, to coming into the NFL as a second-round pick behind Carson Wentz, to now leading your team to 5 straight postseasons, 2 Super Bowls, a Super Bowl victory, Super Bowl MVP. Man, this guy wants to learn, and you never have all the answers. Even when I finished my career, I was always learning. You're always learning. But you need a great coach to teach you the ins and outs of the plays and the progressions.
There's so much conflicting stuff, though. Remember all the stuff with Jalen Hurts? Hurts basically wants to run what he wants to run.
But maybe that's all he knows. Part of the issue I have with these conversations, I like what Foles says, because he mentioned who he's had before. How was Jalen able to put up the stats that he did at Oklahoma with Lincoln Riley and with Shane Steichen in 2022, but then all of a sudden he can't do it anymore?
Well, and one of the things, that's college. I mean, it's a different game. You're throwing against guys who are selling insurance now. I mean, that's a different ball game.
No, but the idea
But that's one of the reasons why I like Kingsbury.
But it's also part of the reason why the Eagles wanted to hire Kingsbury and Lincoln Riley, because they said,
I think
you had success with this guy.
Well, I don't even think it's that. I think he needs that type of offense. Well, yes, you had success with this guy, but I think Kingsbury would be attractive because he runs more of a college-style offense, which I think is more conducive to what Hurts. I would say you got to accentuate the positives. How do I get the best out of Hurts? I probably need to run an offense that is more college style than pro style.
Maybe you need to find somebody who, instead of saying, do this, say, here's how you do this.
This is from Anthony in Avalon on the text board. He says, Mike, take the best offensive coordinator possible and don't worry about losing him the following year after a great season. The window on the offensive line is slowly closing. That's from Anthony in Avalon.
The window closing is a fair comment.
The window closing on the offensive line is definitely fair. If you hire Mike McDaniel and he comes here and puts up 30 points a game, he's going to get a head coaching job. You hire Cliff Kingsbury and he puts up 30 points a game, he's going to get a head coach job. Kevin Stefanski. By the way, did you see that report from Josina Anderson?
I did see that early this morning. I got to pull it up. I saw it, and I was kind of like, when I first woke up, and I was like half awake.
So according to Josina Anderson, the Eagles, I got to pull up the report. I want to get the wording correct. Now, Josina, there you go. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see the tweet up on the screen here in just a second. We'll put that up there. Producer Tyrell's off today, so I'm producing the YouTube today, and it's not nearly as effective. Here we go. A league source said Cliff Kingsbury, a runner-up when the team hired Kellen Moore, and Kevin Stefanski will get a real look for the Eagles' offensive coordinator position, among other options, assuming head coach signings don't supersede the team's vacancy. So that kind of goes to what Rappaport was saying, that the Eagles are going to swing big. Now, Kingsbury runs more of a college-style offense.
Correct.
Jaden Daniels. Hey, listen, when he was in Arizona with Kyler Murray. Remember, Kyler Murray was like the favorite for the MVP for like half a season before he got hurt out there.
Exactly.
The problem was he got Kyler Murray killed.
Right. He got Kyler Murray killed, and then, there was a lot of speculation about, them letting Jaden Daniels come back too soon this year from his elbow injury.
Was that his fault, though?
That's what I'm saying. Whose fault is that? Was that Jaden Daniels pushing to get back on the field, or was that the coaching staff, asking him to come back on the field?
The question was Stefanski. Now, he has never really had a quarterback to really work with.
his whole history is weird because they made the playoffs with Baker Mayfield. Baker had that one run, then Baker got injured. Then they brought in Deshaun Watson. Then Deshaun Watson got injured. Then they brought in Flacco. They go to the playoffs. They try to make the Watson thing work. Goes sideways. And then this year, it was, who wants to be a quarterback? Step right up.
My problem with, now, I think Stefanski gets a head coaching job. There's 9 openings.
Correct.
I think he gets.
I think Stefanski is more likely to get a head coaching job than Kingsbury.
I was going to say, of all those guys, I think Stefanski gets a head coaching job. I'm not sure Kingsbury or McDaniel do.
McDaniel is very interesting because I think it comes down to the organization. If it's an organization that's a little more progressive-minded and doesn't have as many football guys, right, the old school people, then I think they're more likely going to give him a shot.
The only problem, like Stefanski falls into.
He's a little more old school.
He's a little old school, but he's also in more of the Shanahan tree of offense, which has been kind of discussed that's probably not the best fit for.
But he might
Hurts.
be more. He might be more flexible, right? He might be more flexible than those other. Like Kellen Moore came here.
Maybe he might be more flexible, but what he has when they've been good, like when they had Baker and they were actually decent, a lot of double tights, like. They run a lot more zone blocking. The Eagles don't do that.
Right, but maybe whoever gets the job, if it's not their go-to when it comes to the run game, are they going to be willing, like Kellen Moore, to say, "Hey, I'll work with you. I'll be flexible with this run game stuff"?
I don't know. That's why the Stefanskis, the McDaniel, anybody from that Shanahan tree that get people excited. And we're going to have to talk to Moshe about this. How much of a stranglehold does Stoutland have on the run game?
Because I think Stoutland is more of an obstacle than Hurts is.
I can't argue with that. I think Stoutland runs the run game, and if you said we're going to run zone, sweep, this, that, and the other, he might say, well, then what do you need me for?
Or he might say, "Listen,
like, are you willing to have a stare down with Stoutland to say it's this or you're gone?"
Right, exactly. Like, and like I said, one bad year with the offensive line does not make him a bad coach. The man has a decade of doing a great job, and now we're going to act like 1 year we got to fix, change everything. I don't think Stoutland. Unless Stoutland is going to be just so obstinate, you know what I mean? Like, unless Stoutland's going to be such a pain in the rear.
Yeah.
Like, and I just don't see him do it. I don't feel like Stoutland is some, like, contrarian, I know everything. I just don't get that vibe from him. Do you?
I don't know that I've ever heard Stoutland talk except for in the Hard Knocks clip last week. I'm not sure I've ever heard Stoutland say a word.
Well, so Stoutland was a guest on Jason. Remember Jason Kelsey had that short time, that show on ESPN? Stoutland was a guest on that show, and he got time to talk.
Missed that show, sorry.
Yeah, you got to look it up. It's on YouTube somewhere. But, like, every time I've listened to the guy talk, especially with that, like, long-form situation, he doesn't sound like a guy who's, like, my way or the highway, everybody else is stupid. Like, he sounds like a guy who says, I'm a coach, it's my job to get the best out of these players and put them in a position to be successful. And, for 1 year, he had some issues. So I'm not going to be like, you're dead to me.
Text message, how well do former Browns coaches do after leaving the Browns? No, thanks. Browns are bad juju. So you got a point there. You want really a former Browns coach?
Bill Belichick?
Yeah, Belichick was a former Browns coach. He did pretty well. What about what was the guy who went Jackson? What was the name? Who was the coach there for years?
Hugh Jackson?
Hugh Jackson, yeah.
Oh, you're about the Raiders, yeah.
Then he went to the Raiders. And
was he at the Raiders before the Browns? I got to look that up. But
by the way, couple other texts. I was upset they rested the starters against Washington. I could see if they were a number 1 or number 2 seed, but they didn't earn the rest. They should have kept the momentum going into the wild card. I don't think resting the starters is effective. What say you? Well, they rested the starters the year before and won the Super Bowl.
Listen, the previous 3 times the Eagles rested the starters, the final game of the season, they went to the
You know what's
Super Bowl.
funny? That whole decision got kind of swept under the rug because the offense was so bad.
Correct.
You thought that, and because they lost the game. Because
Well,
if they would have won the game
Yeah.
and had to go to Chicago, it would be like, see, you could have had the game here. Instead, they lost, and now everyone's complaining that the offense was so bad.
Listen, I look at it as this, and maybe this is a bit of an aggressive take, but the people who are pointing to the resting the final game are ignoring the fact that the Eagles would have done their job early in the season. They wouldn't have been in that position because you should have beat the Cowboys and you should have beat the Broncos. And if you would have done your job, to quote Bill Belichick, then you wouldn't have to worry about Week 18.
Yeah. That's what, listen, you could, hindsight, yeah, they could have played that game. We're assuming they would have beat Washington. Their offense stinks. They had a better offense without the guys that they had out there. They moved the ball more fluidly.
Yeah, that whole game was so weird, too, because you're asking Tanner McKee to throw 41 times by the end of the game. You didn't really run the ball. We all expected you to actually, try to – remember the whole thing was can you ask Tanner McKee to do what Jalen Hurts can't do? And then all you did was ask Tanner McKee to do what you've been asking Jalen Hurts to do, and it kind of was the same result.
Chris in Delaware says, what top offensive coordinator is going to want to come to Philly and run this offense? You had someone on yesterday who said Kingsbury didn't get the job because he wanted to run his offense. Is Sirianni going to let the new OC run their offense? Chris in Delaware. Well, that's what the bite that we just played from Ann Rappaport said, was you might see them go outside of the Sirianni kind of window there.
I think that
take them for their word on that.
I think that it goes back to the conversation that you and Mosher had a little while ago, which is, I think it was actually before the new year. You guys talked about last month about how the Eagles basically said, hey, Nick, you won a Super Bowl. You want to hire Kevin Patullo? It's on you, right? So now, hey, Nick, you hired your boy. It didn't work out. Now we got to do things our way.
609-403-0973 is the text board. More text message. Here's one. I'm a Browns fan. I watch every game. Stefanski had a horrible year, a lot of weird decisions. And remember, he gave up play calling 2 years in a row. Would he be a good offensive coordinator? I don't know. Good point. Now, you got a lot less talent to work with down there. We just assume. Now, listen. You say, hey, San Francisco had less talent. They didn't have a problem. They didn't have a great day. They needed 3 broken plays, essentially. But other than that, the Eagles kind of stifled them all day long.
I think San Francisco is a team that's very well coached, and those coaches found opportunities to, when they were given openings, they fully exploited it. I think that's what happened. I think that Shanahan and that coaching staff said, if you're going to give us opportunities, we're going to exploit you. And that's what happened.
Yeah, I mean, now Stefanski's in a lot different situation. His offensive line is putrid. Actually, the Browns' offensive line isn't their problem. They have no quarterback.
Well, the quarterback wasn't even fully the problem either, because half the year was Dylan Gabriel at the noodle line.
Yeah, I'm saying, like, their quarterback situation
and then
is
when
a
Shedeur got
disaster.
in there, you had guys like Cedric Tillman dropping the ball left and right.
They don't have great weapons. I don't know. I don't know what to make of that guy, that whole situation with Stefanski. I just don't think Stefanski, with the Shanahan style of offense, is a great fit. Any of those, and I like Mike McDaniel, but
I like McDaniel definitely as offensive coordinator.
Yeah, as an offensive coordinator, I don't want him to be my head coach.
Right.
But he runs a Shanahan style of offense, and I don't know how that works here. Is everybody in the Eagles ready to sit down and have that conversation of it's time?
That's a hard conversation to have.
It is a hard conversation. I brought this up yesterday, which is, does Lurie sit them down and say, look, where's the evolution of this offense, Nick? You've accomplished a lot. You won a Super Bowl. I appreciate everything you've done. But we're not evolving. We're not changing. And if we don't do that, what are we going to be? And at the end of Hard Knocks, I did see this clip.
Yes.
Where Jalen says, like, we'll be back. And Nick's basically like, I don't have any doubt.
And by the way, can I say that, for those who didn't see it, there's actually something that happens before that clip, that moment that you saw that got shared around. If you watch the full end of the episode, right, there's that meeting or the end of the season meeting.
Was it heavy Eagles last night?
Very heavy Eagles.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. The opening of the episode is heavy the other three teams, and then the final 30-some minutes is heavy Eagles.
Good.
So when they end the meeting, you see Jalen. Now, again, you have to watch the episode to see this. Social media doesn't give you this part. You see Jalen walk down the stairs and wait for Sirianni to finish what he's doing. And then you see that Hurts and Sirianni are alone talking to each other in the room. Now, obviously, they edited out what was being said. I'm assuming the Eagles told them, don't put that whole thing in there, that conversation. But then the narrator stops, and then you hear the part that you hear, Mike. So for those who have wondered about the Sirianni-Hurts relationship, in that moment, it looks like it's pretty legit.
Well, and at the scene that I saw where he says, we'll be back. And
what I'm saying is that the setup for that scene.
I know, but I'm saying in that scene there, they're the only two people left.
Correct.
In the room. So it seems pretty apparent that they want to get on the same page. Like, we'll be back. And Sirianni said, I have no doubt.
And really quick, so the reason why I want to go to this cut is because you mentioned Jeffrey Lurie. Nick Foles does mention Jeffrey Lurie on the season podcast.
They're going to get rid of some offensive coaches. They're going to restructure. They're going to have to. The fan base is too passionate. Mr. Lurie he knows Mr. Lurie, hey, man, he's around all the time. He's at every game. He's in the locker room. He goes out to practice. He wants championships just like every owner, but that guy's there all the time, and Howie has built that roster. If he didn't have the roster, I get it, man. You got to get the pieces. But I'm telling you, if you gave Sean McVay or you gave Shanahan or you gave Matt LaFleur this roster, they're going to do something probably pretty special with it.
Pretty big indictment there.
And you heard him say, Jeffrey Lurie, he's going to be involved. He's around the team all the time. You just asked the question, Mike, does the owner step in and say, we got to change things up?
That's my thought, is that Lurie, and I tweeted this out the other day, Lurie, how much did he watch this season and then watch the way they lost the playoff game? Because, maybe it'll change in the playoffs. Maybe they're holding Jalen back. Maybe they're going to let him run more. Never happened. So does Lurie watch a painful season of offense, watch a playoff game that was painful, and then say, listen, what is next for this offense? Where was where did we evolve? How do we evolve this offense to become – I have the most expensive offense in the league.
Right. The
ROI is not there.
At all.
So after watching this season, you have to wonder what Foles said. Is Mr. Lurie saying this has got to change? Because if I let this keep going, same thing's going to happen.
By the way, one more part of this, because Foles goes on to remind everybody that Nick Sirianni, he says, did not hire Kellen Moore 2 years ago.
I'm not even convinced Nick Sirianni was the one who went and got Kellen Moore. When it's been Nick Sirianni hiring from within the guys he likes, it hasn't gone well. When it's been guys that Shane Steichen came in early, but then Kellen Moore, when Nick Sirianni was up for the head coaching job, he was going against Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore was interviewing to be the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. So Mr. Lurie, his family, Dom, because Dom's did all this stuff, they're vetting Kellen Moore. They're vetting Nick Sirianni. They know these coaches, and I guarantee you they kept an eye on Kellen Moore. And when it crashed and burned with Brian Johnson, they were like, hey, Kellen Moore is going to be the OC. We're bringing him in. We know he's good. He almost was the head coach. He's going to be your offensive coordinator.
And that's why I think Kingsbury's name comes back up. Big Dom makes this hire. Quick text message. When it comes to Hurts, it's simple. When he runs and scrambles, he's special. He makes defenses nervous. When he tries to be a purely pocket passer, he's good, but he's not special. That's from Nick and Galloway. Is that fair?
can I say it's fair and not fair? Like I think he's right in the fact that a lot of people who are much smarter than me who in football who have said that the running aspect of Jalen Hurts' game is always going to be his greatest asset because it's a huge threat. But at the same time, I go back to what Nick Foles said and what Kurt Warner has said. You got to give Jalen a guy who's going to teach him how to become a better pocket passer.
3 o'clock hour sponsored by Broadly's Plumbing, Heating, Air Conditioning, your trusted source for heating, plumbing service, installation for generations. 609-390-3907. Online, broadleys.net. The Nuggets are out of the oven. They're next. Knicks Nuggets, an early edition here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN and on YouTube at 973 ESPN. All right, 3:32. I'm Mike Gill, Sports Bash. Hey, you can watch the show on the 97.3 ESPN YouTube channel. Take us with you wherever we go. Wherever you go, you can watch on your phone. You walk into a bar and say, hey, you guys got YouTube, smart TV. Can you put the Sports Bash on? Here we are, live on the 97.3 ESPN YouTube channel. Hey, it's that time of the year. VJ Edgecombe, before he was hitting threes with the Sixers, he was hitting threes at the Metro Atlantic Basketball Classic. It's the biggest high school basketball classic in the country, and it's coming to Stockton University. January 29th to the 31st. Get your tickets now. MetroClassicBasketball.com. Cade Cunningham, Derek Lively, Karl Anthony Towns, Cooper Flagg. You want to go to a game, Nuggets? We got front row seats. I'll take you to a game. Go watch the top high school players in the country, January 29th through the 31st.
You know me. If my schedule allows, I'll be there. I think I went to almost every MAC game last year. I'm a big fan of the MAC tournament, too. Going to those games is always a lot of fun, too. So if I can find time in my schedule, I am there.
Mac's coming back soon, by the way. Mac will be back here soon. I can't wait. It's actually a week earlier this year. It'll allow me to go to more games this year.
Yeah. So hopefully we can get out to one of these showcases and then a few of the MAC games. You got to love hoops. You got to love hoop season. Guess what? It's so funny that we started with hoops talking about it because I got a hoops nugget for nugget number one here on Nick's Nuggets there, Mike Gillen. And we got to talk about Joel Embiid. We didn't get to 2 nuggets yesterday, and I saved them. I put them in the fridge. I made sure they were good to go for today. We're going to reheat them. All right, so here we go. Joel Embiid, is he an all-star this year, Mr. Mike Gill? The other night had an unbelievable dunk. He looked healthier. He looks just so much better. He's playing with joy, according to Nick Nurse, something that he feels like he hasn't played with in a while. He's just 3 points away from his 13,000th career point, which would be, he's 7th on the all-time scoring list, so he's moving up in that list all time. His last 11 games, 28.2 points, 8.4 rebounds, 3.5 assists, and 1.1 blocks, shooting over 50% from the floor. He looks spry, Mr. Mike Gill. I mean, right now, the Sixers, they look like a contender. They just do. I would mark them as a contender at this moment in time, as the health has helped them kind of get together and play together with all the guys, Edgecombe, Maxey, PG, and Embiid. And you saw the difference without Embiid and PG on the floor in the first Toronto game, second Toronto game. They come back and absolutely dominate. Kyle Lowry got in his last time in Toronto. So overall, if you're Embiid, I think he's an all-star this year. He looks like one. And this is one of the craziest turnarounds I have seen from a serious injury. For him to come back and play the way he has and kind of get into a rhythm here, I think this is something that we should be talking way more about with the way he's been able to play and how healthy he looks, knock on wood, at the moment.
Well, there's a lot there. One, is he an all-star? No. And that's okay.
He's playing unbelievable right now, Mike.
He's only played 20 games, so his injury in and out of the lineup. By the way, the All-Star game now, I don't think they pick by position. I think they just take the best 5 guys. He's not one of the best 5 guys. Let's be honest, okay? And I like Embiid as much as the next guy. I got to be objective. He's not an All-Star. But that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. I had a guy who used to text in and tell me how bad Embiid was, retire, blah, 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 blah. I haven't heard from that guy in 2.5 weeks.
Been a little quiet, huh?
Very quiet. And I kept saying, get back to me in March. Get back to me in March. Just let it play out. And every night, he would not play and be himself. He would send a text to the text board basically in a mocking fashion, as if he knew more than I did. And I said, I don't claim to know more. I'm just saying, I want to see it play out. He's not even at 80% right now. All right? He's getting better and better and better, but he's not 100%. There's still more for him to go. He's just starting to trust his body and trust his knee and trust himself. So when I say get back to me in March, at that point, he might look like an MVP, all-star level player. Right now, he's just kind of on the progression to there. Are the Sixers a contender? That's another question. I'm not ready to go there yet, and here's why. I think they have a very good roster. I think they have a roster that fits finally, where it's like, hey, we got some backcourt guys, young, athletic guards that can score. We got the big man who's the big man, and he can score. Paul George now is back. Defense. Gives you a little offense lift here and there. Oubre's now back. He's not 100% back yet, but once he gets going. They have a couple role players in Wofford and Barlow and Jabari and Grimes off the bench. But they lack one thing, and I don't know how they get this. We did our podcast today, Trust the Mics, me and MKB, so you can go watch it on YouTube. You can go watch it on the X platform. They need that tenacious rebounder, a guy who will just clean the glass, and in the big moments of a game, when that team is going down and it's a miss, that their possession is one and done. Because that's not Joel, and it never has been. It's not going to magically happen now. They need a guy who's just going to clean the glass and get that rebound that they couldn't get the other night in Toronto. And until they find that guy, I feel like they're still a little short behind Toronto, Boston. And Boston's unbelievable, the story of them without Tatum. But you know why? They got these two big men that don't score a lick. But you know what they do? They come out and set screens and just take up so much space, and it allows the other guys to do what they need to do because they don't need the ball, they don't need to score, but they just set hard screens. And that's the dirty work stuff that I think Philly is missing right now. But all that other stuff, I'd love for that guy to text in and say, you know what? I kept talking about Embiid, and I texted in all the time, and he looks a lot – I'm not saying he's the MVP, but just acknowledge he looks a heck of a lot better than I thought he would. And I said all year, I think he'll play about 50 games, and he'll look like himself by the end of the season. And it seems to be trending in that direction.
It is. As of right now, you just have to enjoy. I think he's all-star caliber at this point, right this second. I know he's only played 20 games. But the way he's playing. Yeah, go ahead.
You and everybody out there a question. Before, people were saying the team's better without Embiid. Now, you're almost disappointed when he doesn't play.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I was always on the team Embiid here. I've never strayed away from that. Not one time have I strayed away from the team Embiid. A lot of other people. I told you, I went up to New York City. The conductor came up to me and said, we got to trade Embiid. I mean, you're having conductors on trains telling me that Embiid needs to be traded early on in the season. I want to go back on that train and ask him, you want to trade him now? Seriously. Now, the argument is, well, he's at his peak right now, and he's playing at a high level. This is where you get the most value for him. You go for it at this moment, okay? You have a really special roster at this point in time. I'm with you. I think they need more dirty work. Don Barlow's been a nice addition to this team. He steps up in situations, can get you aboard at times, which has been very important for them. I don't know what they do at the trade deadline. Do they keep McCain? Do they want to keep McCain when Grimes leaves probably in the offseason? So that's an interesting because he would be a trade piece heading into the deadline this year. But if this team, like we had talked about this before, they stay healthy, this is a very talented roster. They've beaten the Knicks twice. They split with Toronto over the weekend. One game they didn't have Embiid and George. The other one they did, and they looked dominant. And those are two teams that are ahead of them in the standings right now. And Detroit, I think they could beat Detroit at some point, even though Cade Cunningham has been ridiculous. And Boston somehow has found a way without Tatum, like you had mentioned. But I would just enjoy the ride if you're a Sixers fan right now. When have we gotten something like this with this talented of a roster? This is very special. When you have a young guy like Edgecombe come in to be a piece of this thing, and Maxi's healthy, and PG's out there, he's okay with his role. He's better than Tobias Harris pretty much ever was. He's been a better role in that situation. I think you just got to enjoy it. Just enjoy it this moment.
Something I said on the podcast today. For the first time in how many years are you like, it used to be, I'll believe in you when you get to the playoffs. Just get into the playoffs. You're finally like, you know what? I'm enjoying the season. I want to see Edgecombe evolve. I want to see how this team kind of grows together. You're not in a rush to get to the playoffs.
No, you're not in a rush to, show me, wait till the second round. It's like we didn't have good basketball last year. You didn't have anybody playing. Maxey was hurt. PG was hurt. You didn't have Edgecombe yet. And B, we know the whole thing there with the knee injury. I'm just enjoying it. Just enjoy the ride right now. You coming off the Eagles disaster in the wild card weekend. You got the Flyers, Sixers. Sixers are giving you something. They are giving you something. The Flyers are giving you something as well. But the Sixers have been giving you something, especially over the past couple of weeks here with everybody being back and healthy and Nick Nurse actually having some lineups he could go through now instead of mix matching who's playing what night. You've kind of had some consistency over the past couple of weeks. And remember that stat, like December of 23 was the last time he had a full roster, a healthy roster. So just take
tonight.
it with how it is.
Everybody's probable to play tonight. And
yep.
Hey, I can't guarantee full health for Joel or Paul George,
nope.
But right now they're out there, so enjoy.
Right now they're out there. And, Joel's putting up good numbers. I mean, this is what we got to talk about, Mike. Like, the comeback he's had from that knee surgery. I mean, that we were talking at points sometimes where could he retire? Like, that came up. That conversation has come up in recent months, right? Now, all of a sudden, you're like, whoa. He's not prime Joel, but he's pretty dang good. And he's, putting up numbers at the top of the standings with all the bigs, like all the bigs in the league over the course of the last few weeks. He's right up there with everybody. Before Jokic went down and those top big men in the league, his numbers are right there once again.
Hey, listen, I've always been a Joel guy. I was never the guy that said I want to see him retire or anything to that effect. I don't think he's at full strength still. I think he's only getting better and better and better. As I've said, I'll check back in March. Everything between now up to March, just enjoy it. And then I want to see how he looks for that final stretch run. And the whole thing has always been, get him to the playoffs healthy. Well, let's see if he can get there.
Let's see if he can get there. Let's see if Paul George and the rest of the roster can get there too, because they've been battling injuries throughout. Right now they're healthy. You knock on wood. Last 11 games for Joel, over 28 points a game. That's pretty impressive. And it's nice to see. All right, moving along. Nugget number 2. I want to talk a little Phillies baseball. I know Ranger Suarez signed the deal with the Red Sox today. Thank goodness it was not the New York Mets. We're excited about that. He goes to the American League. Boston fans are happy that they did something because they haven't done anything all season long. And they go get Ranger Suarez, 5-year, $130 million deal. But I want to talk about Bo Bichette, because this takes Boston out of the Bo Bichette, I think, sweepstakes a little bit here. I think, they go out and make their big move with Ranger. I don't know if they are so much stronger in the Bo Bichette rankings here. But I want to play something that I didn't get to play yesterday from Ken Rosenthal. And there's been different reports, conflicting reports out there. And Ken's a pretty well-respected reporter out there as well. I want to play something that he mentioned on Foul Territory that I thought was interesting regarding the Phillies and Bo Bichette. Take a listen to what Ken had to say.
They've got a number of players under longer deals, and it's a separator for them, and it looks like it might be a separator for them with Bichette as well. They'll be willing to go 7 years, perhaps, for a 28, 29-year-old Bo Bichette, where other teams might not. Could the Dodgers jump in? Could the Blue Jays get back in? Maybe, but if the Phillies are the one team, one of perhaps only a handful, if the only one, willing to go long, then I would expect that they're the favorite for Bichette. And they certainly seem to be motivated to do this.
So there's Ken Rosenthal talking about the length of the contract they could offer Bo Bichette. I think that, and he mentions that's a separator from other teams. If you're a Phillies fan, are you cautious on that? Are you cautious on giving Bo a long-term deal? Because you've given out so many long-term deals. Trey, Bryce, Schwarber, all of these names. I love Bo Bichette. I think it would still make a lot of sense because if you get a World Series out of it, it works out in your favor. I would give him the 7-8 years, whatever it takes to get Bo Bichette in the Phillies uniform.
Bichette's a different situation. 7 years, he's 27 years old. At the end of that, he's 33, 34 years old.
Oh, he's 28. He's 28 right now, 28.
Okay, 28. So at the end of that, he's 34 years old, 35 years old. He's not going to be 38, 39, 40 like some of the guys that you signed to those long-term deals. So he would match up at the end of the deals when everybody else is kind of out. So I would be okay with going with a 7-year deal for a guy. It's pretty rare that you get a free agent who's in his prime years still. You get a guy who's still 27 or 28 years old. Most of the time, these free agents are into their 30s, and you have to sign them to a 10-year deal. They're now 40 at the end of that deal. not the case here for Bo Bichette. So I would not balk. 7 sounds about okay. 8, anything over that, you start to worry a little bit more. But 7, I'd be fine with.
7, yeah, I'd be fine with. I'd be okay with 7 or even 8 because he'll be 28 heading into this season during spring training. So I'm willing to give him that longer term deal at this point.
How about a little Diana Rossini nugget?
Oh, how about that? Diana, what's she coming out with right now?
The Eagles have begun reaching out to candidates regarding their offensive coordinator vacancy. Former Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel and former Giants head coach Brian Daboll are at the top of their list.
That sounds about right. That sounds about right. With McDaniel being at the top of the list, little breaking news nugget right there from Diana Rossini. Yeah, I'm okay with either one of those. I probably lean Daboll.
Anderson, she tweeted out last night that the Eagles are going to interview Cliff Kingsbury and Kevin Stefanski.
Yep. Yeah, I'm a little cautiously optimistic on Stefanski. I think he will find a head coaching job somewhere. I mean, the majority of the league has a head coach opening at this point, it feels like, right? 9 head coach openings. So I think he'll be a head coach.
I agree that Stefanski will probably, of that group, I would think he is more getting a head coaching job than McDaniel or Kingsbury.
Yes, I am with you there. I think McDaniel will end up as an OC. Could maybe go to Cleveland. I could see that possibly happening. I know there was reported interest there. I think Daboll's a name, too, to watch. I mean, what he did with Josh Allen in Buffalo, there's familiarity there because he benched Jalen Hurts in Alabama, right? There's that angle to it. And I think he would be an interesting name. The familiarity with Saquon Barkley, too, would be interesting. So I think Daboll could bring a little fire, too, to this offense, right? A little personality, a little edge to this offense. He's a fiery guy. We know that. We've seen that before. I wouldn't mind Daboll. But any of those names, I think, would be an upgrade, to say the least.
Yep. So according to Diana Rossini, the Eagles are reaching out to Mike McDaniel and Brian Daboll. Listen, I like McDaniel as a mind better. I think he's just one of those, he comes off, the capri pants someone commented on last week. I don't care what he's wearing. He wants to wear a clown suit on the sideline. I don't care about that. Just call the plays and make the offense work. But I've always been a Brian Daboll fan. I liked him when the Giants hired him. I thought that was good. And by the way, he got him to the playoffs. And then they just had injury problems at quarterback and offensive line. And, the question would be, Saquon. Does Saquon endorse Daboll?
Yeah, that is a question. He played under him, and they kind of fell apart, right? He leaves the New York Giants, comes here, wins the Super Bowl. I think Daboll's a good coach. He's had success before. I know the Giants thing didn't go well, but he did get Daniel Jones to the playoffs early on during his stint there. So
listen, I have no problem with Daboll. Here's one problem that some people have suggested, though. Sal Powell was on yesterday, and he said one of the things that Daboll, he wore on the players. He was kind of a, he got in their faces. He did stuff on the sidelines. And
that's what I like.
Yeah.
That's what I like. I want a little fire. I want a little fire, Mike.
You get him in Sirianni. Well, people don't like when Sirianni does it.
I know. I don't mind when Sirianni does it sometimes. I think they need a little fire on the offensive side because clearly it hasn't been enough. It hasn't really worked.
All right. Well, I have no issue with Daboll. I have no issue with McDaniel.
I'm in on either one. All right. Just anyone but Patullo, I'm cool. I'm in. Anyone outside the organization, I'm in. I'm cool for the most part. I mean, you'd really have to hire a clunker for me not to be on board at this point.
So, we were talking about this earlier. The fact that Kingsbury, he wanted Stoutland out when they interviewed him the last time.
Yeah.
If it comes down to somebody saying, I'll come, but you got to get rid of Stoutland, what do you do?
No, that I think, well, then you just got to take Stoutland out of the run game coordination, right? Just have him handle the offensive line. I think it didn't work this year. I understand the offensive line was a problem, but I think you want him to focus on the offensive line and get that to squared away first. And if he's got to give up the run game coordinator option, no. But I still want him in the building. One bad year? All right, come on.
All right. Well, there you go.
They're the Nuggets. Little breaking news nugget there, Mike Gill.
Diana Rossi
report.
reporting the Eagles have begin to reach out to candidates regarding the offensive coordinator vacancy. Former Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel and Giants head coach Brian Daboll. We're going to go through the candidates. Jeff Mosher has a great piece over at phillyvoice.com. And, of course, you can check out all his stuff over at Philly Voice and Inside the Birds, the Inside the Birds podcast. Football at 4 is on the other side. That was our Nuggets today. Thanks, man.
Peace.
All right, Nuggets is back again tomorrow. Still to come, Q Myers from ESPN's Game Night will join us at 4:30 today. But on the other side, it is Football at 4. Jeff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast. He mapped out a bunch of different candidates over at phillyvoice.com. Who are the best candidates, the best fits? We'll go through them next with Moshe for Football at 4. Stick around. And Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It is brought to you by the Fanatic Sportsbook at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. Jeff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast is here today. Also, you can check out his work over at phillyvoice.com, where he has a column up that is basically maps out all the different offensive coordinator candidates, and there are a bunch of interesting ones out there. A couple are now being reported to have the interest of the Philadelphia Eagles, one of which is Mike McDaniel. The other one is Brian Daboll, that according to Diana Rossini. You know what's funny? Josh, you'll like this. You know, Diana Rossini is like one of those people that, like, when she reports stuff, people hate her. But because she reported that the Eagles might be talking to two high-profile offensive coordinators, do we choose to believe it?
Right. Listen, I don't think she is as – I think some of the criticism of her is taken a little too far because it's not like she gets everything wrong, you know?
Well, that's a job where people – it's like the weatherman.
Yes.
You keep watching the weatherman, even though he's wrong almost, 50% of the time. She has a position where she's hearing things. She puts it out there. If you don't like it, like anything, anytime something's reported that you don't like, it's generally not real. Well, but if you like the report, well, I read it in the so-and-so, so-and-so. I love that one all the time. You'll have one side of the coin that's like, who reported it? Well, it's not real. Well, then when they find something that they like, it was right here. It's in this newspaper. It's got to be real. It's like, you just told me the other one wasn't real, but that one agreed with you. It fit your narrative.
Yeah, I think the problem for Diana is that because she no longer works at ESPN, there has been a contingent of people who have now come out overtly and passive-aggressively to kind of throw her under the bus. And it's like, well, where were you guys when she worked at ESPN?
Well, she's at The Athletic now, which is a very reputable place.
You and I know that, but people act like she's always been like this. Well, she hasn't always been at The Athletic.
I don't keep score generally. I read it and take it with a grain of salt. If the Eagles are interested in those guys, we'll find out eventually.
I always go back to, I think it was 2017 or 2018. That month of August during training camp, like Ian Rappaport got like 3 things wrong about the Eagles.
See, I would never even remember these things.
And
the fact that people are like, I know we got 3 things wrong. I don't remember who we reported what or when or why or how or who.
I remember it because it was a talking point, and it got to the point where we used to joke that it's like, well, you got to verify that Rappaport. You never know with him, And, is it that Rappaport was wrong or Diana Rossini is right and wrong, or is it the people giving them information?
Well, that happens all the time. People put information out there. They're trying to sway things.
Correct.
So, I don't know.
I think that's really what the issue is. People don't understand how this business works.
Well, what I would say is this. The report is that the Eagles have interest in, or they want to talk to Mike McDaniel and Brian Daboll. And those are 2 names that are pretty high profile. Now, by the way, Mosher earlier was listening during the McGarry segment when McGarry's phone went out. And he kind of took a shot at McGarry by saying he has T-Mobile, meaning that his hit will be clean. McGarry kept dropping because of the Verizon shortages.
Right.
Is now Mosher going through the problem? Or is it something on my end?
I just sent you a message about it, so.
There you go. I don't know what happened with that link.
Yeah, I don't know either. I'm very confused about that.
It's the same link I sent you earlier. There you go. I just sent it to you. Try that now. So for the people that are wondering, by the way, Tyrell, the YouTube producer, is off today. So I'm producing the YouTube and hosting the show at the same time, which is not ideal. But the link for the video for people who watch on YouTube, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see Mosher. He'll be on the YouTube stream.
Although I will say, Tyrell doesn't ever send out the link, so we can't really blame him for this. I think this might be just a StreamYard glitch.
Okay, gotcha.
Maybe we could blame Verizon for this, too.
Well, Earnshaw said he didn't have the right link either, and then I sent him the same link and it worked. And now Mosher's also saying he doesn't have it. But that being said, for those of you watching on YouTube, you'll see Mosher in just a second. For those of you listening on the radio, you'll hear Mosher in just a second. His article is up over at phillyvoice.com, which lays out the best, most logical replacements for Eagles offensive coordinator, and Mosher lays out the best coordinator candidates for the Eagles since they have moved on from Kevin Patullo. Now, this list. He lists them in ideal fits, interesting but, don't hold your breath. Two of the names that he said don't hold your breath have now been linked to the Eagles. Cliff Kingsbury and Mike McDaniel. The other guy, interesting but, is also now been linked to the Eagles, Kevin Stefanski. A fourth guy, as an ideal fit, he lists Brian Daboll. So once we get Mosher into the stream, there he is. And he joins us now for today's Football at 4 on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. His article is up over at phillyvoice.com. He's got a bunch of researched candidates for this job. And Moshe, it seems that some reporting is already coming out for some names that have been linked to this Eagles job. Diana Rossini saying the Eagles will interview Mike McDaniel and Brian Daboll. Now, you have a couple different levels, ideal fits, don't hold your breath, and what was the third one there?
Interesting but, I think.
Interesting but. Let's start with don't hold your breath. Mike McDaniel being reported that the Eagles are going to talk to. Is that a long shot because he might be a head coach, or is this a long shot because of the fit?
Well, yes and yes. I mean, there's a lot of head coach openings, right? And there's only like maybe one or two guys who you definitively know are going to get a head coaching job if they want one. Harbaugh being one, Kevin Stefanski likely being another, and we'll see what happens with Mike Tomlin. So that, and the Eagles never cease to surprise me. They always cast a wide net, so you got to be careful on who they interview and how interested they really are. And then you have to be careful in this case specifically with how interested a candidate will be for the Eagles job. It's certainly an attractive job given the talent, the environment, the history, what they've got. But schematically, I think a big question is this. It's fork in the road here, right? If you're hiring a guy like Mike McDaniel, it means you're taking a sledgehammer to the scheme that has gotten you into the playoffs every single year, 2 Super Bowls and a Super Bowl championship, 2 straight NFC East championships, right? If you're hiring Mike McDaniel and he's running his offense, or maybe you're hiring someone who fits the scheme that you've been running, or that person, like Kellen Moore did, is willing to adjust his scheme for what you want to do.
So let's talk a little bit about this, because Cliff Kingsbury's name has come up. That was according to Josina Anderson. They have talked to Kingsbury in the past. There was some reporting that he wanted Stoutland essentially out so that he could run his run game the way he wants to run the run game. Do you think the Eagles would consider making that type of change for the right coordinator this time around? I
doubt it. I have we haven't heard from Jeff Stoutland. I assume he wants to keep coaching. We know a big reason that he's in Philadelphia and teams don't show interest in him is because they know he's here and wants to be here, very high paid, and will probably finish his career here. And we don't know when that will be. So that's interesting. And I think that was phrased weirdly. It wasn't just that he wanted to get rid of any in particular coach. It was more that a lot of offensive coordinators are allowed to bring in their own staff, or at least they get some preference and treatment. And he has his own guys, Cliff Kingsbury, that he likes. And so it became untenable, as I understand it. And they went with Kellen Moore.
All right. So Kingsbury's name has come up as well. You have him on the list of don't hold your breath. Is that more scheme related here, same as McDaniel? Because I think Kingsbury's offense would probably fit Hurts pretty well.
Yeah, no, I think schematically it's a good fit. Probably why there might be interest there. But
do you like McDaniel's scheme better for Hurts or Kingsbury?
I don't. I don't like McDaniel's scheme for Jalen Hurts and the Eagles offense at all, but I don't want to be unfair. I don't want to put a lid on somebody and say they can't do it because it hasn't been done. But just based on things I've heard about preferences and what Hurts likes and even what Nick Sirianni likes, I don't see that fit at all. I mean, you just watch the 49ers, right? You just watch the 49ers play the Eagles in an NFC wildcard game. So the 49ers offense is basically McDaniels. He comes from that train. He did do some things differently in Miami because of tailoring it to Tua. But the way that the Niners orchestrated their offense, the throws that Purdy would make or attempt to make, and how they use fullbacks and motion and misdirection. Have you ever seen any of that in the Eagles offense consistently? No, that's a whole middle of the field offense. So, I'm not a brain surgeon here. It's clearly not what the Eagles have done in their years here.
All right. Stefanski. Now, of the three, I think Stefanski has the best chance of getting a head coaching job. So he seems like the most unrealistic. Now, It's being reported that they are interested in talking to him as well, that according to Josina Anderson. What do you think about Stefanski's fit? Because he seems to be in that same tree as the Shanahan and a little bit more West Coast.
Yeah, Stefanski's really an interesting cat, man. Like, if you think about it, his only NFL coaching experience came with the Vikings as an assistant who worked his way up, and then the Browns. It's not like he's been in the NFL for, like, most of these guys have, bounced around 4 or 5, 6 teams, but I don't even know his truest coaching influences because he was hired under the Childress regime in Minnesota, then was there through the change to Leslie Frazier to Mike Zimmer, who are both defensive guys. I just know that his offense, the way it looks when he's running his typical offense, is that it's a lot like the old Mike Shanahan, Gary Kubiak, under center, outside, wide zone, stretch zone, play action, which again, we just saw under center in the Eagles offense at times this year. It's not their base offense by any stretch of the means. And you've heard Nick Sirianni talk a lot about the advantages of the shotgun in their offense. But again, I don't put a lid on a coach, just like I don't put a lid on a player, right? Who says that guys can't adapt? Certainly Kellen Moore came in here, tried to run some of the stuff that he used to do and didn't, and adapted. So that's always possible too.
Yeah. All right, you have some other names over there. By the way, another name being reported by by Diana Rossini is Brian Daboll. Let's look at him. You list him as an ideal fit. I like him. There has been talks about he's been a little abrasive with the players, a little animated on the sideline, that kind of stuff. Did work with Hurts. Saquon. Do you like his style for this offense?
His scheme and style, yes. Quick, defined reads. Worked with, obviously, athletic quarterbacks in Hurts, and he was absolutely the handpicked guy to go. Jackson Dart, I should say, was his handpicked guy in New York. So schematically, yes, I think that there makes a lot of sense. I think people just see like connections and think they're automatically great, and that's where I would pump the brakes a little bit. He coached with Nick Sirianni in Kansas City. So what's the relationship like? And then everybody brings up he coached Tua at Alabama that one year that he was offensive coordinator. I'm not Tua. I'm sorry. Well, yes, Tua, but also Jalen Hurts, right?
They
benched him. So,
right.
So no one seems to want to bring that part up. They just want to say, hey, these guys were together in Alabama. Well, that's not exactly the fondest year of Jalen Hurts' memory. So I don't know. I think schematically it makes a fit. I think there's a lot of exterior that might make it a bad fit.
Todd Monken, formerly of the Ravens. Very interesting one here. I like this fit here. I'm interested to see your breakdown of Monken and whether he would be a good choice here because, obviously the Lamar thing. Lamar runs a lot. Jalen, not so much anymore.
Correct. I think this is to me is like the number one fit. Now, the unfortunate part is I think a lot of teams like Todd Monken, and I think Todd Monken and John Harbaugh could certainly be still tied since they both leaving Baltimore at the same time. And John Harbaugh could get a job while we're talking and name Monken as offensive coordinator. So if Monken is going to follow Harbaugh, it's meaningless. However, what I like about him for this job is you go back to Georgia, right? That's Howie's favorite new college, Georgia. Monken was the offensive coordinator there when they won the national championship. He was 11 in personnel, throw the ball kind of guy. And then he gets a job in Baltimore and he adjusts to the Baltimore scheme, right? They play a lot of tight ends. They'll play 2 tight ends. They'll play 3 tight ends. They'll play a fullback, right? Athletic quarterback. And in the first 2 years, until things went haywire this year, Lamar Jackson was MVP, then second in MVP. So here's a guy who was able to meet in the middle with the organization he was joining, recognize the personnel that he had at his hand, recognize what had already been in place, recognize what the quarterback likes to do, and adapt his scheme to fit it. And they did pretty well. Obviously, this last year did not go well. There's probably a number of reasons why. But if you widen the lens, Lamar getting hurt, but even when Lamar was playing, it just didn't have the same bite, that offense. But if you look at the bigger picture, I mean, those first 2 years were fantastic, and I think he'd be really good in this environment.
And listen, they have Lamar and they have Derrick Henry. So they have a quarterback who can run and do stuff. You have a running back who you can really feature.
Right.
Now, one thing the Eagles have that Baltimore does not are 2 high-level wide receivers, at least for now. Even if you only have 1, that's more than Baltimore generally has. I mean, that's been their problem down there. I like Monken as well. I want to go to another guy who has been in Baltimore, just got fired, local guy, Greg Roman, and his fit. Because a lot of people look at him because of his work with Lamar Jackson, also Colin Kaepernick.
Yep.
He just had Herbert and has not really had a stud-level wide receiver. He's not had like that number 1 great receiver. This would be an interesting fit, but I feel like there's the framework of it working. Do you think the Eagles would consider him at all?
Remains to be seen. I would ordinarily say yes, he should. But it's weird. They've had these openings in the past, and I think he's been available, and I'm not quite sure. I'd have to go back and look if they've ever talked to him about a position. So it's kind of strange. I mean, a local guy, as you know, a Holy Spirit grad and South Jersey guy. So he has worked for a lot of head coaches who prefer to run, going back to Rex Ryan and then both Jim and John Harbaugh. It does seem that he has these jobs for a while, does a nice job, but then a team decides it wants to spice up its passing game and then moves on from him. That seems to be a repetitive theme. So if the Eagles want to revive their run game, great, perfect. But if they also really more so want to spruce up their pass game, which has fallen off more than their run game, then maybe not the best.
All right, a couple more with Jeff Mosher. You can read this full piece over at phillyvoice.com. He's got all the candidates and gives you a lot deeper thoughts on all these guys. Matt Nagy is an Andy Reid kind of guy. He was in Chicago. He was the head coach there. He's now back in Kansas City. Not sure what that fit would look like because Andy Reid's style of offense.
I definitely feel like there's Andy Reid fatigue. Like whenever there's a Reid guy linked to the Eagles, it's like, you know.
Well, it's more because that offense is more West Coast, and I don't know that that's a fit here.
Well, it depends. It depends what version of like the Shanahan McVay offense is technically West Coast, but it's got a lot of modifications to it. But the route concepts are, and Sirianni comes from, an interesting chain of Haley and Frank Reich, so there are West Coast elements in his offense. But I mean, he's an experienced. Listen, I think the Eagles have to hire a guy. We already talked about this. They got to hire a guy who's called plays, and it helps if this guy has been a head coach and has led a locker room, and Nagy satisfies all that. And Nagy's also worked with a lot of different kind of quarterbacks. Going to in Chicago, he had Trubisky. Of course, he had Mahomes. I think he was there for Alex Smith when they had Alex Smith before Mahomes.
Nagy's first time in Kansas City.
Her first time in Kansas City, right? So I mean, he's worked with a lot of different kind of guys, and that's good experience.
You did not include Frank Reich on this list. Would you think he is not a candidate?
No, I would think he is not a candidate. We just talked about proven play callers. Well, you got to be a proven play caller.
He was here, and then he went to
He didn't call the plays here.
Right, but I'm saying then he went to Indianapolis. He did call the plays there.
Yeah, how'd that go?
Well, not good, but I guess his familiarity with Sirianni, I don't know how much say Sirianni has in this.
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
That's not a ringing endorsement. You're not giving Sirianni a ringing endorsement for having a lot of say.
Well, let's be honest. I mean, you've watched. We've all observed this team for years. When things seem to hit the fan, who takes over and who takes charge and straightens them out? The owner and the GM. So
would Doug Peterson have any interest, and would they have interest in him?
Can't imagine.
From his side or their side?
Yes.
No,
listen, I don't know. I mean, Doug is not the type of guy to hold grudges or anything, but
I think he has said that he would be interested. Would he be like Robert Saleh, where he says, you know what, I'll just come back. I don't care.
Yeah, sure. Experience, definitely a play caller, had a good year in 2017, but
at least it's a guy that Jalen's played for.
It is. I mean, look, well, hey, why don't we throw Marty Morningweg and Rich Scangarello in there?
I'm just saying, Jalen, we keep talking about all the different play callers. He at least played for Doug and played in that offense, and at least probably has some of the terminology and, all that stuff. But, that's another question. So we're talking about all these guys. How much is Jalen's evolution and growth as a quarterback just been stunted by all of this?
How can anybody answer that question? That's like me asking unfairly how much of Kevin Patullo's growth as an offensive coordinator was stunted by Jalen Hurts' unwillingness or inability or whatever negative verb you want to throw over the middle of the field. That's not fair.
I have no problem with that kind of listen, I do the pie chart of problem. I give Kevin Patullo about 20%, 10% of this.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I really do. A lot of things I've been hearing, not from your show per se, or just in general, are framings of the Eagles' issues right now is who is to blame or who's more at fault. I mean, does Howie Roseman have strengths and weaknesses, in your opinion?
100%. And I think
wait.
You look at some of the weaknesses infiltrated into this team.
Okay. Does Nick Sirianni have strengths and weaknesses?
Of course he does. I think maybe
people
Jalen
Hurts have
more
strengths and
weaknesses than
weaknesses.
Strengths.
Does Jalen Hurts have strengths and weaknesses?
Sure.
Okay, so it can't just all be the reason why they've been so successful in this 5-year realm, right, is because all of their strengths work really well for this organization. The reason why they're inconsistent and have slides and then lose a wild card game at home is because their weaknesses hold them back at times, right? Yeah. So I heard Jeff from Ocean City's next OC doesn't matter, put him in. We got a top 5 offense, and I love Jeff from OC. He's always a good interactor with you, right? But they've never had a top 5 offense. Maybe like 2022 they did, but they didn't have one when they went to the Super Bowl last year, and they had the 4th worst passing offense. So It's not as easy as just put it all on one guy, change the guy out, and let's get going. I mean, it doesn't work that way.
I agree, and I just look at it like this. It's so funny. We were talking about this at the beginning of the show, and we'll get you out on this, is, you go to these Twitter guys breaking down plays, they find one play, and then that's the whole game.
I hate it.
Right? The whole game was this one play, and it's like, and I love Kurt Warner. It's just like, whoa. What are you talking about here? Because, you got one guy saying they ran the same play twice. And Warner's like, who cares? The guys were open on both times they ran it. It's like, but I think that's one thing is how much you look through the season and it's like, how many plays do they miss because the quarterback doesn't like to do X, Y, and Z? And then how much do they not call because the quarterback doesn't like to do X, Y, and Z?
Yeah, but they all have a hand in it.
Exactly.
They all. And, they can hire a great offensive coordinator with a great scheme or a scheme, Kellen Moore, and it may just wind up going back to what it was. And maybe they just need to improve things a little bit better and they'll be fine. And then we'll say everybody's great again. And that's the way it works. There was just a loud Mike McDaniel is the answer for this team. He's what well, how do you know that? How do you know he's going to want to run his scheme? How do you know they're going to let him run his scheme? If Mike McDaniel has to do what Kellen Moore basically did, which is scrap the scheme and just call the Nick Sirianni / Eagles offense, is he as good as the Mike McDaniel you think you're getting? It's just so irresponsible unless you know exactly what the team wants to do right now. Do they want to totally get a different scheme, or do they want someone who can adapt well to theirs? Until you know that, it's almost impossible to know who's the best fit.
Your pick would be who?
I said Monken.
You like Monken?
Yeah.
I think I'm on that. I like Daboll. I like Munkin. They're the two guys that would probably be my favorites right now. I like McDaniel a lot. I just don't think he fits here.
The only thing, the Daboll thing is like, if you get like a couple, Nick Sirianni is a hothead. Daboll's a hothead.
Yeah.
Hurts is not a hothead at all, but he's very steeped in his convictions. You lose 2 games in a row and you get those 3 guys in a room and that room might be bouncing. There might be smoke coming out of those walls. So who knows? I don't know. Sometimes you need the opposite of you to keep you in check, right? So I don't know if you need another one of you if you're Nick Sirianni.
Jeff Mosher, Football 4. Read his full article of all the candidates. There's other ones in there that we didn't get to. It's over at phillyvoice.com. And, of course, the Inside the Birds podcast is on all podcasting platforms, and Football at 4 rolls on all offseason long here on the Sports Bash. Thanks, Jeff.
You got it, brother.
All right, Jeff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast, Football at 4. For those of you watching, we do it every day at 4 o'clock right here on the Sports Bash. Tomorrow, Andrew DeCecco. Friday, Adam Kaplan. Monday, Jeff Mosher. Tuesday, Adam Kaplan. Wednesday, Jeff Mosher. Come back and watch the show right here on the 97.3 ESPN YouTube channel and on the radio at 97.3 ESPN. All right, when we come back, we'll get a national perspective on this. Our buddy Q Myers from ESPN Radio's Game Night will give us his insight on what he thinks the Eagles need to do next right here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. All right, 432 here on the Sports Pass Live, 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Gill. Don't forget, the Metro Atlantic Basketball Classic is coming to South Jersey January 29th to the 31st at Stockton University in Galloway. You guys all have seen VJ Edgecombe. He played in this tournament. You guys have all seen Cade Cunningham and Derek Lively and Carl Anthony Towns and Cooper Flagg. They all played in the Metro. You could see that level of talent at this year's Classic. 6 teams in the top 10 in the nation, 10 top 20 teams, and 7 high school All-Americans, and over 20 ESPN top 100 players. They'll be at Stockton January 29th to the 31st. Get your tickets at MetroClassicBasketball.com. My guy Q Myers is in the house right now. As we do on a Wednesday, we'll spin it around. We'll talk a little bit about this and that and the other thing. But this and that and the other thing lead us to the mess that happened here on Sunday. The Philadelphia Eagles are out. They fire their coordinator. Probably not much of a surprise. But from the outside looking at looking at this Eagles team, I mean, you look at a team that is in kind of disarray? Is it one little tweak, or do they need a big overhaul?
I think it's a bigger overhaul, but obviously starting with the offensive side of things, right? And it's no shock that the Eagles are going to go with their 5th coordinator in 5th years when it comes to the offensive coordinator, right? When they find their new guy for 2026. You know, I mean, look, that's the product of being successful. You know, this is a team that continues to get their offensive coordinators plucked and to go to be head coaches, right? You saw that with Shane Steichen and Kellen Moore. That's the 2 Super Bowl teams. And then you saw 2 other coordinators that did not do well. So now, okay, here comes another one. So that's the first area that they've got to figure out. But, Mike, this is something we've talked about all year. And I even said it last week when we were talking, and I've been riding with the Eagles, but even last week I was like, it feels like it's Brock Purdy in the 49ers time, especially because we had so many questions about this Eagles team. All those questions about relationships, quarterback, wide receiver, offensive line is not as good as it was, right? They try to rely on it all the time, right? It's part of the the area of struggle that they're having, where they have a guy in Lane Johnson who's phenomenal, but he's not available all the time. You know what I mean? Like, there's just a lot of holes that need to be, filled with this Eagles team. But first and foremost, they've got to figure out who's going to be calling the offense, and can they get a good rhythm with Jalen Hurts and everyone else that's around as part of the puzzle.
Well, it's funny you say that because, Peter Schrager said this morning, I thought it was interesting. He said, who gets this job is actually more fascinating to him than who gets the 9 head coaching openings. That's right. How big of a role this is and how much you're under the microscope. And it's like, the question I have for you is, A.J. Brown, we know that whole situation. He is signed. Devontae Smith, he is signed. The whole offensive line, they all got contracts. Mailata has a contract. Dickerson got paid. Juergens got paid. We know Lane Johnson, he's got a lifetime contract.
Right.
Steen's got the only guy who doesn't make any money, so you got to assume he's going to be back. Barkley got an extension. Jalen's getting paid. The only guy who's a free agent is Goddard, and he was the one guy who had somewhat of a good year. So it doesn't look like you can change this offense all that much. Can a coordinator come in here, hit the magic button, and get this thing rolling again, or do they have personnel problems?
I think that they have the personnel. I think there's 2 answers to this, to be honest. I think they have the personnel that can get it done. And if you have the right play caller, like you saw with Steichen and what you saw with Kellen Moore, you could be very successful. But I think we all felt like this offense was kind of stale. And look, even the players said that. A.J. Brown, how early in the season did he say, we're not going to be able to rely on our defense? There's going to have to be a time where the offense is going to step up. He wasn't wrong. Right. And as much as we look at A.J. Brown, it's like, man, that dude is just never happy. He's getting targets, he's getting touches, but he's never happy. Whatever the case may be, he saw the writing on the wall that the offense just wasn't as effective. And obviously when, Saquon Barkley goes for 2,000 yards, then the next season he doesn't. It's like, whoa, man, that's what it's like to have just an average running back season, right? Instead of a super running back season. So that was part of it, but again, I think that Lane Johnson being injured as much as, he always is, that's a big problem. I'll say this, when it comes to personnel as well, I would not be shocked if there's a move that's made this offseason where possibly A.J. Brown is traded, right? I know we talked about it before the trade deadline, and I keep saying that this team is comfortably uncomfortable, and they're okay with the dynamic that they're setting up with. But do you want to go through this, this song and dance again for another season? I wouldn't be shocked if they move A.J. Brown.
Yeah, it's a big cap hit. There's all that kind of ramifications, but they figure those kind of things out. We've seen it happen before.
Yep.
There's some big names, and the interesting part is in here, Q. I mean, all right, you got Mike McDaniel, great offensive mind. Well, one of the problems is he runs a Shanahan style of offense, which a lot of people say, well, Jalen Hurts is not going to succeed in that offense. Or do you got to get him uncomfortable and get him out to get that next layer of him? You got a guy like Todd Monken. Well, he worked with Lamar Jackson. Do you get that style of guy? A lot of this is tied to Hurts, and no one really knows, like, does Hurts have say in the offense? There's always been these, well, does he tell them I don't want to run this and I only want to do these things?
Right.
There's so much unknown about that job. So do you look at it and say, hey, if I'm Mike McDaniel, if I'm Stefanski, if I'm Daboll, and I want to get another head coaching job, I want that job? Or do you say, oh, I don't know if I want to hitch my wagon to Jalen Hurts?
I would want that job. I would want that job. And my selling point, if I were to come into the organization and try to sell myself as the offensive coordinator and get you back where you need to be, I'd come in with a plan of how I'm going to make all these pieces work, right? Instead of what we see all the time, Mike, from these coaches that say, well, this is, like you said, Mike McDaniel runs a Shanahan-style offense. Well, why does he have to run a Shanahan-style offense? Why can't he say, hey, there's a really good quarterback here. Here's a couple really good wide receivers, great running back. Here's a solid offensive line. What can I do? How can I create something to make this work? What can I take? I mean, look, he can't be married to one system. Too many times coaches make the players fit into what they want to do as opposed to making the player, to succeed and showcase what they do really well. So it shouldn't be up to Jalen Hurts. It should be up to the coaching staff that says, all right, this is what Jalen does really well. This is why Jalen needs to be using his legs. This is how he can get the most out of his talent. This is what we're going to do, and we're going to be successful doing it because we have all the pieces in place. There's a lot to like about that job in Philadelphia. There really is. And, oh, by the way, multiple guys that have had success are now head coaches in the league. So if I'm an offensive coordinator, I would love that job for the opportunity to take the next step.
Well, the one thing that gets talked a lot about here is, hey, listen, you don't get to run your offense. You have to run Nick's offense. So it's like, hey, Q, I really want you to be a part of the show, but you got to talk about everything that I want to talk about. No topics. I don't want to hear any of your input. So essentially it's like, hey, Kellen Moore, you're the play caller, but here's the playbook.
Right.
You got to call the plays that are on this book. And that has been the challenge, has been people want to kind of do their own thing, but then Sirianni kind of gets involved and says, no, you got to run my plays, even though he's not the play caller. It's a bizarre situation.
Yeah, and it's not a good situation. That's not something that is too appealing, right? And now I respect Sirianni for having a system. I have a respect for him for knowing his personnel. But if you're going to let someone be the OC and let them call the plays, you have to let them be the OC and let them call the plays. Let them do what they do, but obviously to the strengths of your team. Right. Again, I mean, there's so many times that all these coaches get married to what they do. This is what I do. This is what I do. Well, what do we do? What do we do as a team? How do we get the most out of what we can do and bring to the table? And how can we get better? How can we end up being NFC East champs again and going deep into the playoffs and possibly going back to the Super Bowl? That's the only goal. It's not running your offense. It's not running my offense. It's running our offense to get to have the same common goal, which is the Super Bowl.
Q Myers, host of Game Night. You can hear him at 10 o'clock on 97.3 ESPN. So that's what's happening here. There's other things happening around. Mike Tomlin decided that's it for me. Surprise, not surprise, ever coach again, or does he do what we do?
You know, that's so funny, man. I mean, we've talked about Mike Tomlin for a few years now, if he was going to be, shown the door. And I don't think any of us ever thought that Pittsburgh was going to fire him. I thought it was either going to be a mutual parting of ways, or he would walk away like he ended up walking away. But when you actually hear it, and when you actually realize that it's been 19 seasons and that organization, since I've been alive, only has had 3 head coaches. Now it's going to be going on their 4th. That is amazing. So it still comes as a shock just to know that he's officially out. What really caught me off guard, Mike, was how quickly he made that decision, which to me means that he was already ready to make that decision, right? I mean, the game had barely hit 0-0-0. Less than 24 hours later, he's like, yeah, I'm walking away. Right. So he already had in his mind that he was going to do that. It wasn't something that he had to sit back. You know how they always say, well, I'll talk to my family. We'll sit back and we'll contemplate my future. No, his future was contemplated when the clock said 0-0-0. So that's interesting times in Pittsburgh. I think he takes a year off. As many have said, he'll do TV. He'll be great at TV. And, selfishly, I hope that he's on ESPN, the network, just so hopefully he can be a guest on game night because, again, I'm just being selfish. And then he'll jump back into it whenever he, feels like he has the itch to do it, just like Sean Payton did when he went to Denver. And somebody will give up some capital to Pittsburgh for his rights, and he'll go on probably and coach. He just seems like he's always going to be a coach from at some stage of the game. But then Bill Cowher left, and everyone thought he was going to return. And Bill Cowher's like, man, this TV gig's pretty comfortable. I like this.
Yes, and by the way, Bill Cowher, everybody kept thinking he'll come back.
Yep.
Never did. Just enjoyed that CBS studio. The Baltimore job's open. The Pittsburgh job's open. The Cleveland job's open. That whole division has openings there. You got the Giants here. Miami's open. There's a lot of interesting things. But as Peter Schrager said, this Philadelphia Eagles offensive coordinator job might be the most intriguing of them all. Let's look at the games. Buffalo, Denver. Buffalo scraped by the other day. Denver sat home and watched it. But if it's not this time for Buffalo, when will it be their time? So can they get through Denver?
That's the key, Mike. It has to be, right? This has to be Buffalo's time. And I realize their team is not as good as some teams that we've seen, not make it to the Super Bowl. Obviously, Josh Allen is still Superman. They're going to ask him to put his cape on. I feel like that they're going to find a way to win this game against Denver. I don't trust Bo Nix and the Broncos offense to consistently be really good, even though Buffalo's defense isn't very good. And I do trust Josh Allen. So when it comes to this part of the season, I'm looking at the quarterbacks. Who do I believe in more? If I'm comparing Bo Nix and Josh Allen, putting them in the ring together, I'm picking Bo Nix, Josh Allen. Man, I can't pick a quarterback. Josh Allen every day of the week and twice on Sunday. So yeah, I think Buffalo's going to find a way to win this game. Bo Allen's creative, though. Bo Allen's a creative player.
Yes, I like Denver. I like Denver at home here. It just seems like no one is giving them the respect they deserve. I like Denver in that one. San Fran going to Seattle. It almost feels like, how does San Francisco have enough for the second week in a row? They just went out there, couldn't do anything. Do they go to Seattle and pull off an upset here?
See, I think they do, because I don't think that they'll have that same performance. I mean, I don't think they'll have that same performance. Like Kyle Shanahan he's done the best coaching job of his career probably this year. Will he win Coach of the Year? He should, but he might not, because there's like 9 great stories right now in the league. But he's done so much with so little. And that performance they had against Seattle, where they did, as you mentioned, nothing. I cannot see them having another performance like that. Similar to what I said about Brock Purdy against Philadelphia, it just feels like it's his time. I'm going to keep riding that. It feels like it's Brock Purdy's time. Since he's been back from injury, he's just been, I think, an even better quarterback than he was when, he was with the 49ers before his injury. I just think there's something to it. I don't think that they'll get embarrassed like that again. So, yeah, I got San Francisco going to Seattle and getting the upset.
Wow. Seattle's favored by 7 in the game. I kind of like Seattle in the game, and it's more so.
You trust Sam Darnold? Do you trust Sam Darnold, though?
No, but I don't feel they need to ask him to do all that. That 49er defense is so beat up, and we just saw 13-3 a week ago. It's like, I don't know without Kittle now, too.
Yeah.
If the Niners have enough offensively against that Seahawk defense.
We'll see. I think that Shanahan's going to get into his bag, as he's done all year long. Every time you think that there are too many men down, they can't go. Somehow they bounce up and they get a dub.
All right, the Sunday games. Texans, Patriots. I don't know where I'm feeling on this one. These are two teams that just want to get like in a bare knuckle fight. You got May, who's, you would say if I'm picking that by quarterback, I go that way. I got Patriots at home. But is that Texans defense so overwhelming that I got to go that way? New England's favored by 3, so they think this is a pretty fair fight. What do you got?
I got Houston. I really do. They've got a championship defense. Now, C.J. Stroud really bothered me on Monday because he tried to give that game away. He did everything in his power to say, Pittsburgh, I don't want it. You take it. And the defense is like, oh, no, we do want it. And we're going to show you. We'll go score ourselves, putting up, 2 touchdowns defensively themselves. I think H-Town's going to get this one. I really do. C.J. Stroud has to not mess it up. Kind of like I'm on the fence with Sam Darnold. If he's, if he can get it done for Seattle, I'm a little on the edge with CJ after seeing that performance on Monday. I just think this defense is too good. If you get down 10 points, I feel like it's game, set, match. And I know New England has a good defense as well, but they ain't the Texans defense. I think the Texans, they've got that strangulation hold, man. I think if they get down 10 points, it's over. Game over.
New England's favored by 3. I'm leaning Houston in that one as well. Rams, Bears. This one's tough to see because, Philadelphia probably should be playing in this game. The Rams struggled last week defensively. They put up some points. The Bears struggled.
Yep.
This game could be interesting. Rams are a 3.5-point road favorite in this game, by the way. I don't know what to make of it because I'm not loving the way either one of these two teams is playing, but I will give the Bears credit. They could be down 21-0 in this game, and you feel like they could come back. So I might lean Bears as a home dog in the playoffs. But I do like the Rams' experience a little bit more than the Rams here. So I'm kind of leading the Rams, but sell me on this one.
I like the Bears. I like the Bears in this one. And I caution Bear fans that, you can't keep playing with your food. You can't count on a 25-point fourth quarter to win the game like you did against Green Bay. I mean, Green Bay assisted in losing that as much as Chicago came back and won. But you're playing at home. It's like a wind chill factor, like -10 is possible for the game. So that's going to be a factor. And my biggest factor why I think Chicago's going to win, I think the Rams peaked too early. I think the Rams were playing at a level that was so high. They looked so good. They were the best team in the league. Matt Stafford, hands down, was the league MVP. He hadn't thrown an interception, and it felt like, 6 years. And then all of a sudden he started turning the ball over. I don't think that they're at the level that they were. I think that team just peaked a little bit earlier than what they really should have. And I think that the weather is going to play a factor in this game as well. So as long as the Bears don't get down, multiple scores early, I do think they find a way to win this one.
There you go. There's the matchups this weekend. You can listen to all 4 right here on 97.3 ESPN. We broke them all down. He'll talk more about it on game night at 10 o'clock right here on 97.3 ESPN. Q Myers in the house, as always. Good to see you, man.
Hey, it's always good to be with you, man. A couple more weeks and we'll be in San Francisco, so I look forward to hanging out with you.
I'll see you there. There he is, Q Myers, everybody, from game night right here on 97.3 ESPN. All right, we got the unsportsmanlike moment of the day coming up. You'll hear what Mel Kiper had to say about Jalen Hurts moving forward here as he evaluated him way back in the draft. What does he think about him? Find out coming up next.
He's playing for all these different coordinators going back to those college days, and to be able to adapt that quickly to different terminology, different offensive systems, going back to college into the NFL was pretty amazing. So I think he's underappreciated. He battles, doesn't point fingers. He just goes about his business and drop balls, doesn't matter. He comes back and he tries to do more to try to help that team out. I just think to get some stability and continuity going in terms of continuity with the coordinator would be good moving forward. But even without that, you can't deny the success he's had and how he's been in the biggest spots and Super Bowls and the playoffs. Jalen Hurts is a winner. He's a great kid, and I would want him to be my quarterback.
That was Mel Kiper this morning on Sportsmanlike. It's our Unsportsmanlike moment of the day. Check out what he said there was, all the different coordinators and stuff. And he's looking at it as the way that he adapts to everything, and you should give him credit for that. The way I look at it, though, is have you stunted his growth by changing the coordinator on so much? Can he be the best version of himself going through all this? And now you got to give him somebody different. And if you give him somebody else new, do you want that guy to be completely different from what he's been doing, or do you want that guy to be in line with what he's doing? Like, is this the best version? What we don't know is how much say Hurts has had. We've heard a lot of Nick Foles talking about the quarterback. He'll sit down with the coach. I like this. I don't like this. I like this stuff. I like this stuff. Do we think that Jalen Hurts has had no say on what this offense looks like? I find that hard to believe.
But I don't think it's as much as we think it is. Because remember, it was the Eagles' O-line that went into the coach's offices 2 years ago. It wasn't the quarterback, remember? So, maybe Hurts needs to take more responsibility in the offense.
Well, we'll see it all unfold. The rumors are starting to come out. I don't say rumors. Some of the reports are coming out about who the Eagles are talking to. 4 names have come out: Kingsbury, Stefanski, McDaniel, and Daboll. Those are the 4 biggest names almost on the market.
I think if you end up with any one of those 4, you should be happy. You might have a preference of which one you like, but you would be happy. Make
sure you check out Unsportsmanlike tomorrow morning, 6 to 10, right here on 97.3 ESPN. Hey, when we come back, Jason Kelce has shared his thoughts on the Eagles making a coaching change. On Monday Night Football, he blamed the players over Patullo. What does he say on New Heights? The latest one just dropped, and he gave a 7-minute expository on the Eagles' coaching changes. We'll hear some of that coming up next on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, and you can watch the show live on YouTube. Search 973 ESPN. 5 o'clock, Sports Bash driving home. Mike Gill with you. This hour brought to you by Jersey Cow. It's a year-long thing at Jersey Cow. Northfield, Absecon, Brigantine, the best ice cream, Jersey Cow. So yesterday the news comes down. The Eagles have fired Kevin Patullo. And now what? Well, many candidates are already being reported. 4 big ones: Mike McDaniel, Brian Daboll, Cliff Kingsbury, Kevin Stefanski. Who do you want? Who is the right guy to be the Eagles' next offensive coordinator? Let me know. 609-403-0973. Peter Schrager said something earlier today that is pretty interesting. I thought that Schrager made a comment that really stands out about how important this hire will be. Here's what Peter Schrager said about the Eagles' offensive coordinator job.
There are 9 open head coaching positions right now. I think the Eagles' offensive coordinator hire is more fascinating than any of those 9 jobs.
Any of them.
This job right here, the Eagles OC, is as pressure-filled, as microscopic an analysis, and as hot a seat as any in the NFL.
He thinks that this job is more of a pressure cooker than being the head coach at the New York Giants, the Baltimore Ravens, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Miami Dolphins, the Vegas Raiders. That's 5 openings right there. The New York Giants are pretty high-profile opening if you didn't pay attention. The Pittsburgh Steelers have had 4 coaches in their history. The Baltimore Ravens just fired a coach after 18 seasons. And he's saying that this job is more interesting to watch than any of those. 609-403-0973. Send us some text messages. We are working on the audio. Josh is working on the audio behind the scenes right now. Jason Kelsey gave his reaction on the latest New Heights podcast, which just dropped earlier today. And I don't even think it dropped yet. I think they're just starting to put out some of the audio. But he did go on about a 7-minute expository about it. I listened to the first 2 minutes here. Not even. And the beginning of that, I will just play the beginning part of this about what he thinks was one of the big problems with this offense. And we'll have more audio from it coming up. But Jason Kelsey sharing his thoughts on the Eagles' coaching changes at the end of the season. Now, we did play the audio the other night on who he thought was at fault. And he said the players. Jason Kelsey on Monday Night Football, when asked who was at fault here, who failed the Eagles, was it Patullo or the players? Here's what Jason Kelsey said on Monday night.
I love Kevin Patullo. I know he's a great coach. I know it wasn't the best performance this year offensively. They had the #1 highest paid offense in the league and were mediocre across the board. That's unacceptable. They had their chances to win that game yesterday, and the players didn't make the plays. What Robert Saleh did, that defense, is commendable. What they've done to get to here is absolutely a testament to that organization and how well they're built and they function across the board. Kyle Shanahan with the trickeration, finding a way to get things open and everything like that. You tip your cap to them, but Philly had their opportunities.
Kelsey was borderline angry how mediocre the players were, and he blamed them. Here's what he said today on the latest edition of New Heights. All right, that's what Kelsey said on the latest New Heights. He blamed the offensive line. What position did he play? The offensive line. Those are guys that he went to war with. Those are guys he sat across from, and he blamed them. We've been talking about it on this show all season long, the offensive line. If you didn't want to open your eyes up and see that the offensive line was the biggest issue on this offense. Now, he said it. I'm not absolving Kevin Patullo. I think they had to figure out. Here's what I would say. This is my breakdown of this whole situation in terms of Patullo. He had to go because they can't get rid of anybody else. Here's the thing. People keep blaming Sirianni. What does he do? Yada, yada, yada. When Nick Sirianni got hired, he was the play caller. And you go back to his first 7 games as the play caller. His offense didn't look like this offense. The first 7 games of Nick Sirianni here in Philadelphia, his offense did not look like this offense. They weren't running the ball. They weren't pounding the rock. That first season when Nick Sirianni was here as the play caller, the first game against the Atlanta Falcons, the Philadelphia Eagles won that game 32-6. Do you remember that? Wow, look at this team. Nick Sirianni. They beat Atlanta 32-6. That's a game that you won handily. Usually what happens when you win the game handily? You run the ball to kind of run the clock. In the game against Atlanta, Jalen Hurts threw the ball 35 times. He was 27 of 35, 264 yards, and 3 touchdowns. That was a game that Nick Sirianni was the play caller. He wanted to throw the ball. Nick Sirianni's a wide receiver by trade. He wants to throw the ball. In the second game of the season, all right, they win game 1. They beat Atlanta. They throw the ball all over the yard. They play San Francisco in game number 2. And in that game, Jalen Hurts throws the ball 23 times. They only score 11 points. They only ran the ball 29 times. So they get dominated in that game. That's a good 49er team that year. Game 3, they play Dallas. And in the Dallas game, Jalen Hurts throws the ball 39 times. Nick Sirianni wanted to throw the ball. He called 39 pass plays in that game. The following week, they played Kansas City. I remember that game, actually. I was watching the game down on the beach. Beautiful day. Jalen Hurts, you know how many passes he threw in that game? 48. Nick Sirianni was the play caller. He called 48 passes. You know who the leading rusher was that day? Jalen Hurts, 8 carries for 47 yards. He threw 48 times for 387 yards and 2 touchdowns. Nick Sirianni wants to throw the ball. He then removes himself as the play caller after they lose to Vegas. They are 2-5 at the time. 7 games in, they're 2-5. He's calling pass play and pass play and pass play. And it's not working. Halloween, Sunday, October 31st. They play Detroit. Final score, Philadelphia 44, Detroit 6. Jalen Hurts, you know how many pass attempts in that game? 14. They ran the ball 46 times for 236 yards. And it was on that day the star was born. And who was the star of the team? It was the offensive line. It wasn't the quarterback going to throw the ball all over the yard. It was the offensive line. And from Halloween Day of 2021 to this season, the star has been the offensive line. But like Al Michaels on Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime, he still calls the game, and it's still Al Michaels. It's not the same. It's just not the same anymore. And the offensive line, not the same. And you just heard Jason Kelce tell you that. This is Jason Kelce, who played with Jordan Mailata and Landon Dickerson and Cam Jurgens and Lane Johnson for a long time. And that's him saying, guys, the offensive line wasn't the same. So I guess the question now becomes, as you're looking for the next offensive coordinator, can you run the same style that got you 5 years of success? 5 playoff berths, a Super Bowl championship, an NFC championship. Can they run this style without the offensive line being the offensive line that Jason Kelce was a part of? And even last year, Jason Kelce was not a part of that offensive line, but they had Mailata, they had Dickerson, Jurgens came in. And remember, Jurgens got hurt. He didn't play in the NFC Championship game. He didn't start the game anyway. He got back surgery. He comes back this year. He's not the same. And then Landon Dickerson the other day, he comes out, and Landon Dickerson basically says, I don't know that my body can handle this anymore. He was pretty candid. Dickerson said he played through a, quote, a lot this season. And the season was crappy compared to his past experience playing through pain. He was asked if he was confident if he could make a full recovery, and he said, quote, if I had that answer, I'd feel a lot better. That's not good. That's not good at all. This is Landon Dickerson, who's battling with the fact that he knows, I don't know that I can get back to the player that I once was because I don't know that my body will let me. Jason Kelce told us what some people don't want to admit. I've been saying it all year. It's a little bit more powerful coming from Jason Kelce than it is Mike Gill. So, like when I asked my buddy, hey, man, do you think the offensive line was good this year? If you look at me and say, yes, I think the offensive line was as good as it's been, or it was good, I think you're kidding yourself. I think we all want to just say, I said the coordinator was a problem, and therefore I'm right, and it's his fault. A lot of times we don't want to say the guys that helped me win a Super Bowl, Mailata, Dickerson, Jurgens, Lane. And by the way, Lane wasn't even out there for half the season. A lot of times we don't want to say they were the problem because they got us a Super Bowl. It's hard for us to blame those guys who got us a Super Bowl. But Jason Kelce was able to do it. And I have agreed with Jason Kelce all season long on this. I've said it from the beginning of the year. The offensive line is not the same. The offensive line is a problem. And the next coordinator that comes in here, I'm confident that, let's say this, the Eagles hire the guy that you want. I don't know who you want out there. You can text in 609-403-0973. Let's say it's Joe in Pleasantville. I don't know who Joe in Pleasantville wants to hire, but Joe, whoever it is you want to hire, let's say they hire that guy. My concern is that the guy that I want to hire is the right guy. I don't know that he's going to have the offensive line that Kellen Moore got. I don't know that he's going to have the offensive line that Shane Steichen had. And if he doesn't, can he succeed? 609-403-0973. The poll question, which has been up throughout the show, which candidate would you want in Philly? Mike McDaniel, Todd Monken, Brian Daboll, or other? Leave a comment. McDaniel, the winner, 32%. Daboll, second, 31%. Monk in third, 26%, and other was about 10%. So it is even split on who the next coordinator should be. Most people don't have a consensus here. So we got some text messages coming in. James in Delaware says, so is Lurie in charge of the offense? Maybe there's no faith in Jalen to pass a lot. James from Delaware. Well, James, I said yesterday, and I'll say it again. I'm not a Jalen Hurts hater by any stretch of the imagination. I have always appreciated Jalen. I like Jalen. I have no problems with Jalen. But is the residual effect of changing coordinators so often coming into play here for him? And now he has another one coming in. Not a recipe for success. Not a recipe for success. But, as Mel Kiper said, maybe he's the one guy that can overcome it. Maybe he's the one guy that can evolve and keep getting better even through all the bumps in the road. But I think it's a pretty strong statement from Jason Kelce to come out and say, the offensive line is the problem here. He has to stare at all those guys. He went to war with those guys. And the first minute of his expository on what went wrong with the Eagles, when everybody in Philadelphia is saying it was Kevin Patullo, it was that guy, and he got fired, and he has to say, guys, he wasn't the biggest problem. It was my buddies. You know, this is like, what was the cartoon? Scooby-Doo, where at the end of the show, they pull the mask off the guy. It was you? You were the guy? This is Jason Kelce. He's the guy all year saying, oh, I know what the problem is. I know what the problem is. I know what the problem is. And at the end, they pull the mask off, and it was like, it was the offensive line. My friends, they're the problem. But I don't want to say that because they're my buddies. You know, it's one thing if Jason Kelce came out and said, hey, you know, Patullo, first-time play caller, maybe it wasn't the right situation. That's what Kurt Warner said, by the way. I think Kurt Warner had about as good a breakdown as you can get of this whole thing. Objective, not knee-jerk reaction. Just watch the plays and say, hey, listen, this is a very good play. It's a well-designed play. It wasn't executed very well. And when I did my pie chart the other day, I had offensive line 50%, lack of execution 20%. It wasn't executed very well. Their offense wasn't executed very well this year. And a lot of this could be, hey, you know what? We won the Super Bowl last year. Maybe we're got a little fat and happy. And maybe, just maybe, you had a situation where your offensive line wasn't as good, and these are guys that we all like. These are all guys that we like. All right, 520, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. When we come back, we'll hear more from Jason Kelce on the New Heights podcast. He just dropped today. So we'll hear he said the offensive line was the problem. But what else did he have to say? We'll have that coming up next on the other side here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Live video streaming on the X platform, YouTube, at Mike Gill Show on the X platform, 97.3 ESPN on YouTube. This hour brought to you by Jersey Cow. It's a year-long thing at Jersey Cow in Northfield, Upseek, and Brigantine. The best ice cream, Jersey Cow. Sixers tonight taking on the Cavs, 7 o'clock on 97.3 ESPN. Flyers taking on the Sabres, 7:30 puck drop on Rock 104.1 and the Rock 104.1 free mobile app. All right, 527 Sports Bash. I'm Mike Gill. Don't forget the Metro Atlantic Basketball Classic is coming to Stockton University. It's the first time this incredible high school basketball tournament is coming to South Jersey. They've had this Trenton, North Jersey, big-time players, guys like VJ Edgecombe, Carl Anthony Towns, Cade Cunningham, Cooper Flagg. They've all played in the Metro, and you can go watch this year's Classic. Get your tickets at metroclassicbasketball.com. It's at Stockton University, January 29th, 30th, 31st. metrobasketballclassic.com. All right, Josh, you've been going through the audio here, so you're in charge. We're all counting on you.
I didn't hear what part you played earlier, to be honest. So which part did you play
I played the first about a minute where he basically said Patullo is not absolved here, but he thought the offensive line was the problem with their injuries and that they just flat out didn't play all that well.
Gotcha. All right. So let's move on to the next parts of what he says, because
I mean, you can for people who just are tuning in right now.
So for those who don't know, they actually talked football for the first time in a while on the New Heights podcast. I know, Mike, you like to joke around that I'm like the guy who listens to all the player podcasts, but the New Heights has really dived down the list because pretty much every week they're interviewing celebrities. It's turning into like a celebrity, Entertainment Tonight podcast. But they actually talked about football this time. So let's get into. So Jason Kelsey opened the pod basically responding to what he initially said on Monday Night Football when he, shall we call it, vented about the players not performing and people blaming Patullo for everything. So he took some time to clarify what he was trying to say on television 2 nights ago.
I'm not trying to absolve Kevin Patullo of blame. Like, obviously, they let go of Kevin today as the offensive coordinator. And, of course, the offense wasn't up to the task this year. It regressed. And the main reason it regressed, and I've been saying this from the beginning, was the run game. The offensive line's inability to stay healthy all together, to open up holes.
So, he kind of starts with the idea of, look, let me try to clarify what I'm saying. And, I think that in a world that does not like nuance, Kelsey was trying to, be level-headed with his response. And he did admit that he understands that the passing game was an issue this past year, but he also reminds people...
Not only this year, in years past, too.
Well, that's what I was just going to say, that he's reminding people that this isn't the first time the passing game has been an issue.
The passing game, they struggled last year. I mean, there was all sorts of things happening last season that we like to forget because we won the Super Bowl. But the passing game has been an issue for multiple seasons now. Now the running game isn't there. Why isn't it there? The offensive line is in and out. They're hurt. Guys are overcoming injuries. They're not playing the same way they've played in the past. You have a quarterback that's not running as much. Jalen Hurts, the threat of him running the ball
can't stress
opens
that
up so much for the running back when they have to truly respect it. And it also opens up things downfield.
Yeah, I think that was a big, big, big difference. That, look, the offensive line is a problem. Jalen Hurts is just not a part of the run game anymore. He's just not.
And we don't know particularly how much that is him, how much is that is the, heck, did the front office, go to the coaching staff and say, we got to protect our $200 million quarterback. We don't know exactly the genesis of that, but it is definitely an issue because a lot of their success in the past is built off of the threat of, we had someone text in earlier about how, or maybe it was a YouTube message watching at 973 at Mike Gill Show, but somebody messaged earlier saying, one of the reasons why Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen have success is because they run the ball. And guess what? The reason why Lamar had a 4,000-yard passing season with 41 touchdowns 2 years ago was because the threat of his running is so well established that he was able to have the opportunity to start opening up the pass game. Right, Mike?
Yeah, listen, everything that they've done in the past is all off of the offensive line being the star of the team, which then allowed Jalen to become a star and allowed Saquon to become a star. Heck, he had almost a career rushing record last year. He was such a big star. And then AJ and Devontae. But without that offensive line, you saw what happened to the rest of this team. They couldn't perform at the same level. You need those guys.
So Jason goes on to explain that he hears all the complaints, but he says it didn't mean they didn't have a chance to win the game on Sunday.
Everybody likes to talk about the predictability. And to be honest, yes, I would love to see more creative things. I love watching the trick plays. I loved, as much as I didn't love watching it in the game, the trick play to McCaffrey was an awesome play, right? I like watching the creativeness. I would love to see more motions. I would love to see all that stuff. That being said, we had plays to make in that game. The 49ers had their opportunities to win the game, and we had ours, and we didn't capitalize on ours.
Well, and that's what we've been saying a lot is 4 drops on third down. You go down the field on your last possession, you're trying to win that game, you throw a pass, and it's dropped. If Devontae Smith catches that ball, you're first and goal at the 5-yard line. You make that play. Now, I know it's like, yeah, the offense is still struggling. All these games came down to a play or two. Just make the play. Make a play. That doesn't mean that the offense was going to fix itself, but there were plays to be made, and they just didn't make them.
And so Travis Kelce jumped in at one point, and he talked about, the same thing that Kurt Warner and Nick Foles and other guys have said, which is people got to stop acting like that final play that was called by the Eagles was a bad play necessarily.
They end up going with what everybody's saying online, 4 verticals, which is, those of you that don't know football knowledge, it's a play that everybody has ran their entire lives. Like we ran that at Heights, and we ran it at Cincinnati. We ran it every offense. It's day one type stuff. And I think that's getting thrown at Patullo as that's not the play call that needs to be called right there. If it works, it is the play call to be had right there. And I think that it's tough because, it's cover 4. That's not the best look versus cover 4, but every play that you call has an answer. And it's up to those players on the field to be able to make it shake no matter what.
Well, that is great to hear from especially a tight end who's like, hey, look at the coverage here, but hey, I got to figure out a way to beat it. And listen, I'm going to take what Kurt Warner has said. Kurt Warner is a very level-headed guy. He's not a hot taker. He's not a hot clicker. He's not click my stuff because I need you to click my thing. And I watched his breakdown. It was long, but I sat through it because I wanted to be educated by what he had to say. And what he said makes a lot more sense than what Emmanuel Acho says, in my opinion. Now, you might watch what Emmanuel Acho says and say his stuff makes more sense. I hear Travis Kelce, his stuff sounds a lot more like what Kurt Warner is saying, is that the play call is fine. The play's there.
It's the execution.
The execution's the problem.
So that's when Jason jumped back in and talked about how he thinks what the Eagles need is a fresh perspective, not crazy roster changes or coaching changes.
It would probably behoove the Eagles to bring in somebody with a fresh perspective on where it's at currently. Because when you're in it, you're thinking about what you've done well in the past. You're thinking about how you've had success. It's like, man, I know this guy can do this. I know this can happen here. When you bring in somebody else, it's like, man, this is where we're at now. And now we can bring in some fresh ideas. We can figure out a way to maximize things.
While keeping that nucleus together.
Of course, yeah. I mean, I don't think it needs to be anything actually that drastic.
Well, it's the whole thing. The Phillies, do you want them to run it back? No, they need some changes. Do the Eagles run it back with the same offense, or do they need some tweaks and changes? Now, the big change is the offensive coordinator. Like if the Phillies would have ran it back and got rid of Rob Thompson, I think people would have been okay with that.
Right.
But they kept Rob Thompson, which means we want some changes. And so far, there hasn't been any changes.
Yeah, and I would say that for the Eagles, I wrote an article last night at 973ESPN.com. One of my top players, I was saying my top 5 that they got to make tough decisions on is Dallas Goedert, because Goddard is a guy who had 11 touchdowns for you last year. For an offense and a lot of struggles, he accounted for a huge chunk of your scoring. Do you bring him back because of that, or do you say, Dallas, we love you, but you've had so many injuries over the years, we can't trust your body to hold up long term? That's a huge part of the decision-making this offseason, along with who's going to be the play caller. Do you bring in that new play caller, whoever it is, Daboll, McDaniel, right? Do they say, you know what, the way this team is constructed, I like it? Or do they come in and say, yo, we got to get a new right guard, or we need to move on from A.J. Brown, or I need Dallas Goedert here? Like, these are things that we're going to find out in the next couple months.
No question. And I can't imagine that a play caller is going to be like, I think this offense stinks. I need wholesale changes. I think they're going to say, hey, look, I get a chance to work with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. The Dallas Goedert thing is going to be interesting. You know, I don't know where they get the money to sign him to come back.
Right.
And they really haven't found a tight end to replace him.
No.
You know, the last couple of years we've been wondering if they're going to take a tight end in the draft. They haven't done that. So, do you just go with a rookie tight end next year and hope that he succeeds? I don't know. That's a position that I think is up in the air.
Historically, what the Eagles have done, whether it was when they drafted Goddard, when they drafted Ertz, when they drafted Selleck, there was already a guy there, right?
Yeah. No, that's what I'm saying.
So
they've had these guys over the years where they drafted Ertz, they drafted Goddard when there was like 2 years left in his deal so that he could play behind him.
And before that, they drafted Ertz when Selleck was already an established guy. They drafted Selleck when L.J. Smith was an established guy. This is what the organization has done. So it would be very out of character for them to draft someone this year and then not have a guy there to maybe bring them along.
Yeah, right now they have Grant Calcaterra,
who can't stay healthy.
Who might be a free agent as well, I think.
He might be. I have to double check.
I'm pretty sure he is. I think him and Granson is also
I know Granson is because he signed a 1-year deal. So let's get to the part where the Kelce's, both Travis and Jason jump in, and they kind of really get to the heart of their frustrations. The idea that we got to stop acting like only one person is at fault when teams don't succeed.
I don't think it's fair to ever just put it on one guy, especially when the passing game.
That's where I call bull. You can't just throw it on one guy.
Yeah, and Jalen said it after the game. You know, I don't think right now is the time to put it on any one person. Now, listen, he is the offensive coordinator.
That is a responsibility.
Yeah. Well, it's not only to call plays, it's also to have the players play well. And that's the mark of all the coaches, right? That's Jeff Stoutland is the best offensive line coach in the NFL. That's his job, is to get the offensive line to play well. We didn't play as well as we have in the past.
Pretty obvious that, well, you know, listen, he said he's the offensive coordinator. Was he talking about Hurts?
He's talking about Patullo.
Okay. Because he did mention Hurts. He's like, well, he's the offensive coordinator.
Well, no, they were saying that because the part that, you know, is not in that bite, because they went in this little expository about, you know, they started listening like Patullo's the offensive coordinator, Hurts is the quarterback, Stoutland's the run game coordinator, Scott Loeffler is the quarterback coach. Like they started like listing like the team, like look at all these people and their different jobs and responsibilities. And, you know, something I know that Jason has talked about on Monday Night Football before is about the fact that, you know, people don't always appreciate how many moving parts there are for a football team and how codependent everyone is on each other doing their job for success.
Well, and the one thing he did mention again at the end is the offensive line.
And he mentioned Stoutland. And I'm glad he did, because he goes on to explain, Mike, Jason Kelce, that, you know, it's not that he dislikes anybody in the building, but he saw what the problems were from the outside, and for him, he had to speak up about what he saw.
The bottom line is this offense didn't live up to what it should have, right? And Patullo's the offensive coordinator, bears responsibility, and so do the players. That's my thing. I don't think the players played as good as they could have, and I love all those guys, and that's just the way it is sometimes. I had my seasons. I damn sure did. And, you know, how do they rebound from this? Where do they go from here?
Well, and he's right. He had a season in 2016 where you thought about trading him and moving on from him because he just didn't play well, and that's what he's saying about the offensive line. The coordinator wasn't great, but the players didn't play very good. Like, they didn't play to the level that we remember them playing at not too long ago that helped them win a Super Bowl, and it's the same guys.
And so that's where Kelce kind of wraps up, where he says that, you know, he kind of wrapped up the long conversation with the thought that, okay, I've established with you guys who are all listening that I blame the players first. I understand that Patullo didn't do his job, but everyone's responsible for these problems. He goes on to wrap it up by addressing one more time the issues of this offense is too simple. You know, what about the fact that you're trying to be more creative in the offense? And he says, it's a lot easier to say that, Mike, than it is to actually do it.
Again, I would like to see more creativity. I think the Eagles tried to. They tried to do more under center. So, like, if you're not going to do the gun runs with Jalen, you might as well get underneath. That's why the gun runs are successful. He keeps people honest. He's a threat to go run the ball. Okay, now we got to get under center. Now we got to develop play actions. It's hard to develop all that stuff in the middle of a season. And it never got to what it needed to get to. And the offense as a whole, just the players were hurt. Guys didn't play as well. Saquon didn't have the same year because, in part, the offensive line wasn't as good.
That's a third time, by the way, he went back to the offensive line not being good enough.
Yeah, and I think what stood out to me in that point was he talks about in there about how he says, look, you can't make these crazy creative changes in season. But that kind of amplifies what Nick Foles has been saying on his podcast for 2 months now, which is Foles keeps saying that, hey, all the stuff people keep complaining about, this has to be established in minicamp, in training camp, during install, that you want the Eagles to execute different plays in different ways, but yet you're not understanding that happens not in season. You know, man, how many times have we talked about this year, Mike, how badly it went for them when they changed coordinators midseason with Desai to Patricia, right? For the defense. Everyone who's ever played the game has said the same thing. Every former player has talked about how making drastic changes in season is very, very hard. Mm-hmm. Well, Kelsey told you there, he's like, look, you can't make these changes in season. And Foles has said on his podcast, those changes have to be made in the off season. So it's almost like as you're going through the year, you're trying to make adjustments. You're trying to make shifts where you can. But then you realize I can't change the entire offense in week 10 of the year.
Yeah, that's the big thing, is that people wanted them to basically try to install a new offense after running this offense for about 5 seasons now. Now, I would say in 2021, Sirianni was the play caller. I just went through all of his games. They threw the ball all over the yard, and then they shifted gears and became a running team. So they did change their focus.
They changed their focus. They didn't change the offense. You know, it's like, for example, you know, if you have...
Right, but the point that Kelsey was saying is, look, if you're not going to run the ball with the quarterback, you might as well get him under center and help the run game more. And they ran the ball, you know, Sal Pal brought it up on Monday. They were under center 7 times the other day.
And they ran the ball all 7 times.
So they weren't disguising or hiding.
Right, and so that's another issue. Is it a play calling issue? Is that a player execution issue? Is that Kevin Patullo's calling the play and Sirianni's not being assertive enough to be like, yo, Kev, let's get a play action in here, buddy.
Good stuff. Good job cutting all that up and turning that around as fast as we did with the Kelsey stuff. By the way, Sixers tonight at 7 on 97.3 ESPN. Flyers tonight at 7:30 on Rock 104.1. Now, who's getting the main NBC Sports Philadelphia channel? Who's getting the plus?
I mean,
what's your guess? Let's find out.
I mean, to me, I always assume that the team that tips off or drops the puck first gets the priority.
Looks like the Sixers are on NBC Philadelphia, and the Flyers, I guess.
Flyers are on TNT.
Oh, that's why. The Flyers are national tonight.
Yeah, the Flyers are national.
So there you go.
Well, but usually they say, hey, you know, the Sixers tip off at 7. The Flyers might be 7:38. You know, and that's why they go one versus the other, usually.
All right, we're getting ready to get out of here tonight.
We are?
It's been a busy show. A lot of text messages. We've been getting texts all day long. We're going to start we got the YouTube back and running on the 97.3 ESPN YouTube channel. We'll start doing more segments where your YouTube comments and text messages will feature full segments on them. Football season still rolling on in the playoffs, but we're picking up the pieces to the Eagles season right here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, your home for Sixers Cavs tonight. All right, 5:52 as we get out of here on a Wednesday night. Sixers tonight, taking on the Cavs. I think Embiid's playing tonight. He was probable the last I saw. Flyers are on Rock 104.1, 7:30 puck drop. Sixers are at 7. I'll be in on the Sixers. You going to do the Flyers?
I'm going to start with the Sixers. Then when the Sixers go to halftime, I'll flip over to the Flyers.
Yeah, I mean, I'll flip back and forth, but my primary will be Sixers, and then Sixers game will end about, late third period. I'll get the flip over. So I'll watch, halftime, late third period, see what's going on there. Sixers playing well. Flyers not. Drysdale's supposed to be back tonight.
He's supposed to be back tonight. See, I also do something that you don't really like to do. I like to rewatch games that have already happened later. So, I'm the kind of guy, I'll flip back and forth. And then later at night, I'll all right, I'm going to sit down and watch this game separately. Batteries not included.
Yeah. I don't usually do that. Now, for football, I will. I'll do a little all-22 sometimes. Not all the time on the all-22, but, where there's a big split in,
The
stuff.
universe.
The play call was horrible. The guys aren't open. I said, let me go back and check this out. Yeah, I saw guys open.
I'm just excited you're watching
day.
Kurt Warner's stuff. I've been watching him stuff for a couple years now. The QB Confidential.
Mm-hmm.
You know where I learned about that from? Your boy Kevin Harlan.
Nice.
Harlan likes to plug that on the Monday Night Football
By the
broadcast.
way, speaking of Kevin Harlan, we're going to be at Radio Row in San Francisco. Hopefully you'll have Kevin Harlan on the show. We're going to be at San Francisco in a couple of weeks.
Well, do you think he'll commentate your lunch again?
Possible. We'll see.
That was so funny.
All right, that'll do it for us. Don't forget Sixers basketball tonight. Tom McGinnis on the call right here on 97.3 ESPN. Tip-off at 7 o'clock. Over on Rock 104.1, if you're a Flyers fan, you can check out the Flyers and the Sabres over on Rock 104.1. That coverage starts at 7:30. Tomorrow night, by the way, Flyers are back on 97.3 ESPN against the Penguins. Sixers play Friday against Cleveland. So another back-to-back for the 76ers. And then Saturday and Sunday, the NFL playoffs, the divisional round. The Flyers play the Rangers Saturday. I think that's Saturday afternoon at 1 o'clock. That game will be on Rock 104.1. All right, that's it for me. Have a great night, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow. See ya.